Just for moving the goalpost.
I
That's
don't think the Democratic Party is economically very socialist at all, because I don't think you could
no,
successfully run a
dude.
socialist party
America's
in
America's fucking
under Bernie
capitalist
Sanders. It could have
core.
been under Bernie Sanders. It definitely could have been, because Bernie Sanders is, like, Bernie Sanders is like two steps right of Jeremy Corbyn, the way I see it. Like, that generally seems to be to me. Like, who Jeremy Corbyn is, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders definitely. I mean, this past election definitely moved the Democrats more towards the left. I mean, I can
Like, very
concede that,
hardcore. Like,
but still,
maybe not the Democratic Party itself, but for very much its supporters. Like, I have guys I work with that have always been generally Democratic parties. They're usually union members and whatnot, and they've never talked about socialism to me before in their lives before Bernie Sanders ran for president. Well, first of all, he's ran before, but like before this most recent push, obviously.
right.
Um, they all of a sudden become interested and a bit more accepting of socialist ideas, whereas before, like, the only time socialism ever really even came into their minds was denying that Obama was a socialist, because that's the only conversation
Right.
they had to have about it.
Right.
It wasn't a
Which
widespread
was
accusation.
ridiculous. And that's what I'm saying. Like that
I
was like a mainstream Republican idea. This was not a fringe Republican idea. That's I
here's the
guess
thing I'll say.
that's the right way to put it. Yes, the left has these fringe ideas in it, okay? But when you get down to like the party of the left, the Democratic Party, okay? This is not their platform. The Republican Party actually has these ideas as their I mean, these are mainstream ideas within the Republican Party. Birtherism, um, I mean,
Birtherism.
dude, birtherism. Dude, they're the polls when Obama was president. Like an insane amount of Republicans, when you poll them, think that Barack Obama, was a
Was
Muslim
born in
or
Kenya,
not born or
it was
born in
Kenya, wasn't
Kenya.
it?
That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm trying to say with this false equivalency, man. The Republican Party,
Those are the
these aren't
Alex
fringe,
Jones
these
crowd,
aren't
aren't they?
fringe ID, but that's what I'm saying. It is becoming the party of the Alex
I'm not
Joneses and
saying
the
Alex Jones is fringe. Alex Jones is huge. Alex Jones has
That's
millions
not.
of followers.
But that's what I'm saying, man. The Republican Party. These aren't fringe ideas within the Republican parties. That's why I say it's a false equivalency. Yes, there are leftist extremists in America, and that will vote Democrat. But the governing party of these people, okay, and there's a stark contrast. There's a stark difference. The Republican
I actually
Party.
don't think most of the far left would actually vote for Democrats.
Well,
Um,
you know what, they might not, and that goes further to, I mean, prove my point that the
well,
Republican
no.
Party, it's a false
Well,
equivalency.
here's
Yes,
the
these
thing: is
groups
like,
exist, but the Republican Party, these are mainstream. These extremist ideas are mainstream ideas within the Republican Party.
here's the thing though. Like, as odd as it seems, because I know it doesn't seem that the Libertarian Party gets a whole lot of support and everything. Most of these people that I talk to me about third parties, whether it's Libertarian Party or some other, like, party that I couldn't even remember, but like, they're not relevant. You know, like, I don't actually like to associate extremists with mainstream parties much to begin with, and I don't think that they're very greatly connected. I don't think it's, first of all, both far right and far left ideas are just not politically palatable, because most people, especially like apolitical people who just sort of vote out of, some sort of obligatory feeling to vote for a certain party or whatever, they're generally moderates, and the most part that you get, even like the sort of people who are like right wing moderates, but they're very religious, and like they're not necessarily fundamentalists, but they're sort of prudes. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, right?
Yeah, like there's like those people, and like that's the sort of authoritarianism that you see that sort of is pretty common in the right wing. It's very tolerant of religious authoritarianism, but not necessarily when it comes to economics, not really when it comes to, for the most part, like personal issues and whatnot. Like, they're very individualistic as far as those things go, but when it comes to, like, traditions and the way society is supposed to be in their eyes, through their religious lens, like that's where he's like, that's sort of where I criticize guys like Ben Shapiro on. He's Jewish, so he's not the typical Catholic right winger that you expect, Christian conservative that you'd expect, but he's not very far off from it, and I do think that, like, obviously his lens is totally blurred by his religion, where like there are things he will say and do in the name of his religion that he would not do otherwise, because it's like it's not consistent. You don't see that same sort of logic being applied to the rest of his beliefs. And so like,
But this is okay. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Finish. I'm sorry.
well, I was gonna say like that's the sort of authoritarianism and I hesitate to really call it extremism, because it's like it's fundamentalism. It's really, yeah, it's extreme, but it's really the most literal interpretation of what they believe. So is it like, I think extremist is a bit of a
Okay,
bad
so
word
so
for it.
maybe so maybe extremism is a bad word for it, but it's certainly in my mind like counterproductive to liberal democracy or a productive, healthy democratic society. I mean,
Yeah, it's definitely demonstrably wrong.
when you and going back to this false equivalency, I mean, what party is constantly, um,
Well, they both harp
demeaning?
on to
What? Hold on.
Christians
No, listen.
and
What
different
party
religious
constantly
groups.
demeans the education? Right?
What do
Like
you
you're being
mean?
indoctrinated when you go to fucking college and shit
Oh,
like
dude,
that.
let's not even
Okay.
go there. I hear from everybody that is a total like apolitical. Everybody universally agrees that there's some sort of indoctrination going on when it comes to all these people who believe like these sort of things. It's not even a conspiracy theory. Most people feel like you read a history book and it's telling you half the story. What are the expressions you've always heard? History's written by the winners. Like that's not something like the right wing. Yeah, they obviously think like, God, the communists are indoctrinating our children and they're fucking turning the frogs gay. And, like on the left, though, they definitely think like, yeah, the entire society is based on this patriarchal sort of hyper-masculine Christian conservative culture, and everything is meant to be brought up for you and you're supposed to be raised that way, and everybody's supposed to be like this robot mindset, everything. Like, they both have those ideas. They're just different. And, to be honest, it's a bit more true on the left that like, yeah, America is fundamentally for the most part, a Christian country, at least in its founding, and it does have a very, sort of naturally right-wing Christian conservative culture. I can agree to that. Like, but as far as education goes, I think the right has a bit more to complain about when it comes to how universities teach kids. But for the most part, obviously in like public schooling and throughout elementary and high school, it's going to be a
I
pretty
really don't
right
see.
wing
I
education.
really, the experience I had, I really don't see the complaint. I've really never seen anybody
Well, you
right
went
wing
to one
knock down.
university, right?
I did,
Yeah, it's one
but I'm saying
university.
like, yeah, one university. But what I'm saying is who? I mean, how many people have went to no university, okay, and they think that they're being indoctrinated. There are certainly professors that are bad at their
Well, you
jobs,
agree that
okay,
propaganda
but what I'm
exists, right?
saying,
Like propaganda can exist in
propaganda
education.
certainly exists, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's why it pisses me off so much when I hear this about, what I was taught in university, even by the most leftist of professors, was
Mhm.
to think fucking critically and look at different sources and have an argument and actually have that argument backed up and actually question it and not take everything. Okay, so this is the
Yeah, but
opposite
like
of
everybody,
indoctrination.
like most
Okay,
most most rational people would think that way. It's not just a leftist way of thinking. And I also hate
I'm
the
not
term
saying
the
I'm
term
not
leftist.
saying it's a leftist way of thinking. I'm saying I'm saying that there's no. I'm not saying that's a leftist way of thinking. I'm saying even
Yeah.
the most leftist of professors taught their students this way
Well, yeah,
to
yeah,
you
but
know what
like
I mean, to
I
critically
just
think,
but like
to
who
look
wouldn't?
at it.
Besides somebody that is like a religious fundamentalist that obviously does not think critically as far as their most fundamental beliefs go, for the most part, who doesn't try to think critically? I think most people don't want to
I
be
feel
wrong.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying that they maybe don't, but I feel like it's pretty obvious when people aren't thinking critically. I mean,
I generally think
whether
most people at least attempt to do so. Whether they're good at it or not is definitely questionable. But like, I mean, I definitely try to give most people the benefit of the doubt and assume that they've thought through their positions. You know.
I mean, I take it on the merit of their argument. I think it's pretty clear by one's argument whether they're thinking critically or not. I mean, it's pretty easy to debunk a bad argument. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, in some cases, it really depends on the situation. Like there are bad arguments that can get a crowd cheering if you got the right people around. But I mean, I think we've all seen that. You know, it really, it's not really all based on the merit of somebody's argument because for the most part, it's based on what becomes more popular, what people are willing to support. And it's like you're gonna have to modify your positions a lot to really get people on board with anything you actually, if you actually want to become productive and affect policy and change anything, like you're gonna have to modify your positions a little bit.
No,
And
I get that, but what I'm saying is there is an objective truth to this world. I mean, there are certain objective truths, not everything. And the social science is when it gets, you get the water gets more muddy because it gets more subjective in that aspect. But there are objective, hard truths in this world. You know what I mean? That one either accepts or they don't based on the evidence, and then changes their mind. It's the ability to change your mind based on the evidence, essentially.
can
I
I
mean,
I
but
think to wrap up to a larger point though, like one of the reasons I was mostly talking about the right wing fundamental, like Catholic Christian fundamentalists and all that, is that like there is an equivalency between that and the left. Like on the left, you see, I don't really, again, like I was saying earlier, I don't really think the Democratic Party actually entertains a great deal of socialist economic policies, but I wish there were a better term for it. But really, I really have to just say intersectionality and cultural Marxism, and I know that a lot of people disagree with like what does cultural Marxism even really mean. I think that's a larger discussion probably for another time, but I do think that that often is very much entertained by the Democratic Party itself. I've seen it. When it comes to like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders with their views on identity issues and whatnot, social issues primarily. It seems to be highly influenced by intersectionality and to some extent cultural Marxism, but I think for the most part it's the supporters that are a bit more culturally Marxist than um, the actual Democratic Party. Like intersectionality, people won't want to look at it as just like feminism has taken over the left wing, whatnot. That's actually really not true. Feminism is actually one aspect of all of it. There's a great deal of postmodernism and intersectionality, and as well as like, for the most part, social constructionists within the left wing. They view pretty much everything as a sort of social construct, and like that is sort of what I would equate to the right wing, Christian conservative fundamentalists and everything, because these are the sort of people that are willing to deny science for their own beliefs. Like they're the sort of people who say things that like biological sex does not even exist. And yes, I can, and like that's like there are professors that teach this, and I've seen them. I've seen their debates on TV, and actually a very widespread idea in a lot of, for the most part, liberal arts universities that spread these sort of ideas. And I also think that's a deceptive naming for any sort of university, a liberal arts university that teaches, intersectionality and cultural Marxism. And like, I've listened to a lot of lectures by Jordan Peterson, who's a critic of postmodernism, and
I just don't
I
understand
think
though where
he
you get
actually
this
identifies.
that you think it's so widespread. I actually still follow anthropological like sites and journals, and no sociologist in anthropologist
Well,
that I'm
first of all,
reading is
do you
saying
agree that it
that
even exists?
biological sex exists. No, they would agree that biological sex exists. Anthropology is the study of biological, cultural in development as well as humans in general,
Well,
which yes,
okay, here's the thing. Like
biological
they
sex
don't.
exists, but gender is a social construct basically.
Okay, well,
And when you're talking about
we're
like,
not talking about gender. We're talking about biological sex. Like
right, but
I
I don't
agree that
see
there's a
this widespread.
separation.
That's what I'm saying. Like I see
It
this
is
like
pretty wide.
with the
It
right,
is
what
pretty
I said,
widespread.
it's these false um crises and stuff. It's these manufactured crises by
I'm
the
not
right
saying
that
it's a
there's this
crisis.
widespread like belief that you take crisis as more of a misnomer or like a metaphor. It's just this manufactured problem in society that
I think it's
exists
just
in such a fringe. It's not even that much of an issue. It's an issue in that localized section. You know what I'm
look,
saying?
but
It's like,
here's my thing. Like, I'm not coming at it from a, or like a right wing perspective and everything. I'm coming at it from a place of experience. Like, I myself used to think this way, and I used to support exclusively Democratic candidates for these reasons. I'm not saying this as in like, Like this is something that's, an awful thing. These are all awful things to believe in, and it's so widespread, and it's this, terrible thing that we have to stop. It's not nothing like that. Like I don't even feel that way about the religious fundamentalists and whatnot. Like if the Westboro Baptist Church wants to go on fucking protesting forever, fucking let them go on protesting forever. I
Yeah,
don't
and I
care.
agree. Yeah, fuck. I mean, fuck them. But yeah, I agree. Like, right,
I
they
don't want
can
to give them
protest if they
attention.
want.
I don't want to give them
Right, they're
attention. So
assholes. But
yeah,
I guess the difference of what I'm trying to say is what you're saying is even if these people do exist, there's nobody from these fringe groups on the left writing policy in such a way that's affecting me
you
because
don't
they think that sex doesn't exist.
you
But
don't think the majority of people on the left would.
The Republicans that think that evolution should not be taught in schools and that creationism should be taught to children as science and that climate change doesn't exist or and then we shouldn't do anything and or actually I want to touch on this. I think Democrats do the free market better than Republicans in a lot of ways, but I want to touch on that here in a
I
minute.
just don't really
But
see why it's a competition to begin with. Like, I could probably agree that obviously, as I said earlier, America has a sort of naturally right-wing Christian conservative culture. So I think it's pretty obvious that there are going to be a lot more of these sort of, science-denying religious fundamentalists and whatnot
it's
than there are going to be
I'm saying
sort of the left-wing equivalent of them.
it's I'm not trying to make it a competition. What I'm saying is there is no competition. There is one side that is clear. That's why I say it's a false
Well, see,
equivalent. There's one
I don't
side
agree with these
that
sort
is
of objective
clearly
statements.
affecting people in a different way than the Democratic Party, right? So the Republican Party are the ones
The
that are trying to
Democratic
like
Party has
keep
affected
us
people
on
through
keep us
through.
on coal. They're trying to keep us on coal. They're trying to keep us on oil. They are trying to legislate religion in the classroom. They're trying to pass bills that allow discrimination based on homosexuality. These are things that actually affect people. The
Okay,
fringe
yeah, but
group
there
and the
there are things on
Democratic
the left
no
that
Democrats
actually
are
affect
writing
people as well. There are things that are
the
supported by the Democratic Party that actually do affect people as well, and
yes,
they
yes,
they
of
are
course,
done through the
everything
lens.
any politician is
And
going to affect
I could even tell you
somebody.
how intersectionality has influenced one of them. Affirmative action. I don't know what your feelings are on it, but I think we briefly mentioned it once before in one of our previous discussions. Like I'm sorry, like affirmative action is 100% influenced by the ideas of intersectionality, and it's all about the equality of outcome for people who believe in affirmative action. I see affirmative action as essentially renamed, legalized discrimination based on race. And when it's not, the thing is, race is an aspect to it, but there's also a class-based aspect to it, and potentially a gender-based aspect. These days in America, you're more likely to be accepted into a college if you're a man and not a woman. And it wasn't like that 4 years ago. Women were actually more likely to be accepted for about 10 years, and it's now been reverted because of affirmative action policies. Now that they're trying to equalize the genders, equalize the races, equalize, even the sexualities in some schools. Like you've seen a decline in women being accepted. You've seen a decline in like a lot of people being accepted in these schools now on discriminatory. I'm sorry, on a discriminatory basis of their identity. And that actually does affect people, and
Okay,
it's not just
and,
universities.
and I agree.
There are workplaces that do these sort of things, and I don't really think that like people will say there's things like gender and race quotas and whatnot. I don't really believe that there are quotas in most places. I think that's a bit impractical. I think most of those quotas would be pretty unreachable, and a lot of people would be fired for not hitting that quota. So it's a bit of an impractical idea, but that these sort of discriminatory practices do take place, and it was set into motion by not just affirmative action actually being put into policy, but it's become just a generally popular sort of way of thinking, and it's not necessarily anti-white or anti-black or it's not an exclusive sort of discrimination that takes place. It shifts into who it discriminates against. And it's like it's bizarre to watch because eventually if black people became the majority of a university, they would be obligated in a sense to start discriminating against black people in favor of more people of other races. And it's like we obviously I think most people would see that as a bad thing, but I've heard the idea that it's like if that's the way it has to be to equalize everything, then that's what's necessary for them. And obviously, like, affirmative action doesn't necessarily allow the most extreme examples of all these things really be taking place. And usually when they do, when there's like outright, um, sort of like, I guess
Right. There are lawsuits, and it is corrected. But that's
it's
what I'm
not always
saying.
corrected. That's not what
It's
I'm
not always
saying.
corrected.
It's usually
Everything's going to
not.
slip through the cracks. And I'm not trying to argue that the Democratic Party is perfect and it doesn't have any bad policy, because I'm not trying to argue that. Okay. I wish there was another party besides the Democratic Party that I could vote for. Okay. But I'm certainly not. But what I don't understand is, I guess what I can't understand is how anyone really can argue that there's some, like, I don't know. I just clearly see the Republican Party as worse than the Democratic Party as far as
Okay, well,
in
see,
the
the thing is,
interest
like, I,
in
I
the
feel like it's
interest
so
of
sort
liberal
of.
dem- hold on, in the interest of liberal democracy and in the interest of a free society. I clearly see one that is worse than the other. In the Republican Party, which is basically infiltrated with religious extremism or fundamentalism, not extremism, let's say fundamentalism, okay? And going back to actually think the Democrats do the free market better than the Republicans. If you look at what people want in our society, they want clean energy. They want cheaper, cleaner energy. Okay, they don't want to be on fucking oil and coal. Okay,
Okay,
and
but
but yet,
I just think that, like, we're kind of like talking past each other at this point here, because I don't think we're ever really going to agree on this sort of like objective kind of statement. I really am not. I don't tend to agree with statements like this, and like, I wouldn't say about the other side. And it's like I don't. I think our perspectives are a bit different, and I think
what what
maybe
what
you've
attracts you to the
experienced.
Republican Party? What attracts you to the Republican Party?
I'm not very
What do you
attracted to
think
the
they
Republican
do?
Party at all.
What do you think they do for liberal democracy?
I'm not very attracted to the Republican Party at all, but as far as what they do for liberal democracy, you know, I think me and you have talked about this before, but like, they're not incredibly different than liberal Democrats. Like, conservative Republicans, it's essentially just an older version of liberal Democrats. Like, it's, democracy in and of itself is different than republicanism. Like, the idea of a republic is a bit more of a modified form of democracy. But like, they fundamentally agree on, I think, the most, basic things about democracy. Like, people agree, with the right to vote for everybody, the freedom of speech, and every aspect of, what makes our democracy great. Like, they all pretty much fundamentally believe in. And like, you can't not believe in at least some form of democracy. If you're a part of any sort of relevant political party. Like, even libertarians are obligated to support democracy, and there's nothing libertarian about democracy. Like, it's actually, in a bizarre way, it's actually an incredibly authoritarian system, because 51% controls 49%. That's like, that pure democracy. That's the way it works. America's not a pure democracy. Like, we're a constitutional republic, and that's
Right.
that's the
No,
result.
exactly.
Yeah, like, so, like, there is a difference. I don't think that Republicans are necessarily meant to serve liberal democracy, because they're meant to conserve a republic. Like, that's it. Like, they are fundamentally opposed, but they're not incredibly different to begin with. It's like, it's just that, for the most part, a republic is a bit more controlled than a outright democracy where it's just majority rules. To me, the idea of majority rules, I think, I really can't understand why anybody would agree with that. Like, I don't think that you should expect the majority. Two things. I don't think you should expect the majority of the country to have the right ideas, and also I don't think you should expect the majority of the people to have the interest of the minorities. Like, I'm not saying minorities and like as an identity thing, like
I
ideological
know you're saying, yeah, and
minorities.
minorities and numbers.
Yeah, so I don't think it's responsible to put the majority in power.
Right. I don't
Yeah,
think that the minority has the majority in its best interest I mean, either. You know what I
yeah,
mean? That's why, I mean, I respect the
yeah, but
constitutional,
the minority is
you know,
obviously less powerful to begin with.
well, right, and it's usually, I mean, sometimes a lot of times it's reactionary because the minorities are often oppressed. I
Yeah, and it
mean,
shifts. It shifts between the two. But like the thing is like one of the conversations you'll have a lot, especially over the recent election, is the Electoral College. And there's a lot of people who are against the Electoral College and don't understand why it still exists. And the reason it still exists, honestly, I don't think it was necessarily intended to do so to ensure that the minority of the voter base actually wins, but I think it was intended to allow that to happen if the right states were all together to ensure that it happened. And for the most part, it's like we know what the Rust Belt, the Bible Belt is, you know, that area of America, really all of Central America, even though some states will eventually go blue for a generation, maybe two, they all kind of, are fundamentally red states, and there's a network of, within the Electoral College where that sort of culture that still remains within the center of the country has a great deal of power when it comes to the Electoral College. And even if they're the minority as far as the popular vote goes, their votes sort of matter a bit more. And that's why, like, do you get what I mean? Like, it's sort of
I,
structured
I
in a way
I
to where the
do. I just don't
minority can
understand. I just don't
supersede.
understand this nihilism, though, where you say like I just can't accept any objective
Nihilism.
statement. No, that's nihilism to me, though. How can you say like, would you rather have a better economy or a worse economy?
That's not what
Because the
nihilism is,
economy.
though. I'd like
No, but
nihilism.
it's saying no.
I
You're
believe
saying like
nihilism is
you
the.
can't you
It,
can't. It's in the spirit of nihilism. Like you're just like I can't accept any objective statement about whether one party
it's
is
not
better than the
any.
other.
Well, okay, yeah. As far as that goes, I definitely don't think I
This
can.
nihilism on the subject, these are there are things that we can measure, okay, and that's why I asked you like why you can't like why would maybe I asked the wrong question, but why can't you accept any objective statement on why one party would be better for the country
Okay,
than the other
here,
in
here,
this current political climate? I mean,
okay.
typically like our economy does better under Democrats, so that means
Okay,
that
here's the thing. Here's the
right when
thing.
our
I'll put it to you like this. I've had these sort of questions put towards me before, and I can't like. Recently, I had a bit of a run-in at a short I'm sorry, at a shop I was visiting where one of the guys I was talking to was talking to me about a hat I was wearing, and it was like a political hat and whatnot. It was obviously like the Trump hat that you see me wear. And I had a conversation with him about everything, and he was asking me a similar question, but a bit more extreme. He was asking me what do I think is more evil, the far right or the far left, and primarily he wanted to focus on Nazis and communists. Like he was willing to
yeah.
admit that he thinks, like he was willing to admit that he sees communists as sort of like historically
I don't like
equals
the
as far
evil.
as well.
I don't like that
Well,
whole
see,
thing
like
anyway. I know you're
I
telling
see
a
this,
story,
I
but
see
I
this kind
don't
of
like that.
question. I see the kind of question you're asking me in the same way I see a question like that, where it's like I cannot tell you definitively whether I think
I,
communists are more evil than Nazis or Nazis are more evil than communists, and I cannot tell you definitively whether I think Republicans are more authoritarian or the Democrats are more authoritarian. I understand like in some
but I think
cases
you can
in
measure these
some
things by the
cases
policies that they put forth. That's why I always say ideology. Yes, it does lead. It can lead to policies, but at the end of the day, policies what matter. I think we can measure these things. That's why I don't understand why you can't make a
so how
decision
how
or you
would
don't
how
want
would
to
you
make
how
a
would you
decision.
measure it? How would you measure it?
I would say that although the Democrats aren't perfect, the Republican Party goes way further in trying to limit groups' rights. So basically, if you are not like them,
What do
they
you mean
want to
by
limit.
groups'
They limit
rights?
your rights. I mean, I'm talking about homosexuals. I mean, historically, I mean, yes,
We
the
can
Republican
definitely agree
Party
as far as
might not.
homosexual. We can
Hold on, the
definitely agree as
Republican
far
Party
as
might not be
homosexuals go.
racist. Right. The Republican Party might not be like racist in its essence or whatever, but I'm sorry, if you're a white racist, you're going to find a home better in the Republican Party than you are the
Now,
Democratic Party.
see,
I'm just sorry.
here's the thing. Like first of all, like I see that as very condescending to begin with.
That's
But
not condescending. I don't see
it's
how it's
it's
not
just
just. I
fundamentally
mean,
not. It's just fundamentally not true to begin with. Because first of all, like I said, I'm not one for conspiracy theories either. I don't tend to like them, but I do know what I've actually researched when it comes to the relations of racist groups and both Democratic and Republican candidates. And the thing is, there is remnants of things like the Ku Klux Klan in both parties. We're just made more aware of it when it comes to the right wing because the left obviously is not so willing to admit it.
It,
But the thing, like, first of all, I've had this conversation almost 100 times before, and do you know what the clam bake is?
no, I do not know what the clan bake is.
The clam bake, first of all, it was something back in, I believe it was 1924 when it took place. I'm pulling it up on my screen right now to try and just verify for anybody watching exactly what it is. But
I mean, you do realize the
yeah,
Southern strategy, right? I mean,
yeah, we can definitely talk about that. But like in 1924, there was at the Democratic National Convention, it was referred to as the Klan Bake, and essentially because they all showed up wearing Klan outfits, and this is pretty much the best record of an actual relation between the KKK and the Democratic Party, but also people will tell you a lot on the right that the Democratic Party is actually what created the Ku Klux Klan. And here's the thing: no party was necessarily responsible for the creation of it.
no, no party. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party are two totally different entities. I mean, they might be in the same name. The NRA is completely different than it was 100 years ago.
What does the
Or
NRA have to do with anything?
no, but I'm just saying. No, it's just an example of how political, how parties. I mean, yes, they still have the name Democrat and Republicans, but the ideologies have shifted so far from what they were 100 years ago. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where you're going with this. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to when it comes to identity issues, not primarily with like homosexuality, I could definitely agree that the right wing is definitely more authoritarian when it comes to homosexuals. That much is obvious. Nobody could disagree with that. I think even the ones who believe in those sort of things would obviously agree with that. Um, but when it comes to things like race, I do think that racism has had a pretty equal influence on both parties, and I think historically, I'm not willing to associate things like the Klan or even in the modern day the alt-right that has sort of become more popular than things like the Klan, which
I think you're.
if
I'm sorry. I think you're dancing around it though. You keep going historically this and historically that, which yes, his okay.
well, I
Again,
mean, you would
his
agree that like this
histories
influence
histories
matters.
play a part. Yes, yes, influence does matter, but reality also matters, also what the parties are today. So yes, there can be influences, and I'm not going to say that there is no such thing as a racist Democrat. Of course there are. There are racists in all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
But my statement is that when you find someone that's okay, I'm not saying that okay, all Republicans are racist. But if you're a white racist, you're probably a Republican, right? Just like, okay, if
See,
you're a
I
black
just
racist,
disagree with
if
that. I
you're a
just
black
disagree with that.
racist, you
It,
probably vote Democrat, right? Because in your own
See,
interest,
do you
okay?
really believe
Not
that
all
though?
black
You
racists
say that
are
you say that like you don't really believe it though, and I don't believe either of those statements. First of all, most racists, I don't like people who are actually like sort of nationalists, whether they're white nationalists or black nationalists or anything. They don't usually typically support a lot of candidates. So you don't like it doesn't seem to actually be a great relation between these nationalist groups and like really anybody when it comes to anybody that's running for office or anything like that. They're constantly disavowed, whether even the black nationalists and everything. Like Al Sharpton has had to disavow black nationalism before.
you're talking
You know,
about but this is again you're talking about fringe groups. I'm talking about everyday people. I work construction. I work fucking, you know what I mean? Like I've been around, like my family is like half of them are fucking hillbillies, okay? And 9 out of 10 racists that I meet are Republicans, okay? Now, every Republican I meet is not a racist by any stretch of the imagination, but
how many racists
almost
have you
every
met?
single dude, I know a lot of racist people. I've met a lot of racist people working fucking construction and shit and landscaping and stuff
Okay,
like
when you
that. The
say
good old boy attitude.
when you say racist, what exactly do you mean? Like, do they actually hate people, or do they
Like straight up, like these fucking niggers living off the fucking government dime shit and like racist.
Okay, yeah. So like
You
that's
know what I'm saying?
like that's explicit racism. Like obviously like
Like,
those
well, yeah,
people.
fucking welfare queens, and that's what I'm saying. But see, that's what I'm saying. Like the Republican Party
Well,
doesn't come out and
first of all,
say,
like
"Hold on," the
white
Republican
people
Party
can be
does
called
not.
welfare queens. Welfare queens is not a racial
Listen,
term.
they can, but that's not what listen. When that whole that's what I'm saying. It's like that's what's so frustrating is you just act like this coded language doesn't exist. The Republican
Well,
Party,
I mean,
Republican
I've never really
politicians don't
viewed
stand
that
up and
one.
say these niggers living on the fucking dime. But they fucking, you know what they mean when they're talking about inner city and welfare queens, okay? When the term was first coined, you know exactly
Well,
damn well what Newt
both
Gingrich was
parties
talking
say
about when
in
he's talking
both
about
parties use the
fucking.
term inner city. I don't like. What was the other one you
Right.
said?
They use them in very different ways. Welfare
What do you mean
queens
they use them in?
and
How do you know what way they're using them? Like how in any way could the term inner city be like derogatory? I don't get that. Like how is that some sort of, is that a pejorative thing to call it? Like inner city, yeah, like people might naturally associate inner cities with being a negative place to live in some sense, but like God, I don't think that's a really derogatory way to describe what you would call inner cities.
dude, it's straight up fucking dog whistle politics, man.
You really think like that one especially I really don't understand. But what was the other one you said?
Okay. So, Paul Ryan. Here's a prime example from Paul Ryan, a statement that he made. I'm paraphrasing. He said something that you can't publicly say black people don't like to work, but you can say there's an inner city culture. Okay? Inner city things like inner city culture, okay? Um Fucking law and order has long been used by the Republican Party to mean cracking down on quotation inner city problems and issues. And you can. That's what I'm saying. You can see it, right?
I really want to know why exactly you think there like I can agree that yeah some things are dog whistles and there is some coded language when it comes to politicians and what you know what they're really talking about like yeah obviously but uh, it just I don't really understand like these terms that you're listing like I don't really
I
see
I
like
mean, this is the
law and order is a term as old as Rome and Greece. Like we've
no
always
no shit, man. But what I'm saying is that language changes. Language is fluid. Okay, what one word meant in Rome and Greece, it's about the context in which it's used. Context is important.
what else does
Words and
law and order
definitions.
mean? What else could law and order mean besides simply law and order? Like it's like I'm just trying I'm trying to understand.
Actually, the whole law and order thing comes from, I believe, the Nixon administration. Okay, in which it was admitted this whole idea, which carried on to the Reagan thing with the just say no shit and the law and order was really the war on drugs was really to crack down on minorities in the fucking hippie culture. I mean, his goddamn Secretary of State or whatever admitted this.
I mean, I could definitely agree. Like law and order could be a term that's used for, I guess, some sort of encoded language for a lot of things. Like if you're, you know,
It
if you're talking about solutions to
It
things
can
like
be, but I'm
guns, it could
saying
be,
the
you know,
Republican
law
Party
and order
has
society.
traditionally used it in a very way, just like they use inner city culture or they say like gangster culture. We know who they're talking about, okay? And it's not. And I'm
Okay,
sorry, they're not just
okay. So
talking. They're not just
here's a
talking. Listen,
problem.
they're not just talking about um,
Gangster
um,
culture. I take issue with that
gangsters,
term.
okay?
Well, like like first of all, like what do you consider to be gangster culture? Like first, I'm sure that you agree that it exists. But what do you consider to be gangster culture?
I mean, gangster culture. I mean, I would view it as more of like whatever, like the social structure of gangs. I mean, honestly, that's how
I,
I would look at it. I mean,
I see gangster culture as a sort of both collectivist and sort of like I want when I say anarchist, I don't mean actually like they actually have anarchist beliefs or anything, but I think there's an anarchist streak within what I guess what you would call gangster culture, that makes them highly critical of their environment. And like when I say collectivist, obviously like you know gangs are inherently collective. Like they're collectivist movements, you know. Like it's not it's not quite like a registered political movement or anything. Like we're not gonna look at the Bloods and the Crips as like that sort of thing. But um, when you say though I assume what you mean when the Republicans say things like gangster culture. I
They're talking about
assume
black
I
people. Right.
yeah
They're talking about
I
black.
assume you think they're
I
they're
mean,
associating it with black culture. And the thing is, I've had this discussion a lot because first of all, I don't see gangster culture or even rap culture to be exclusively as black culture, just the same way that I don't see things like rock and metal being exclusively white culture. You know,
this is where the disconnect lies, though, Tony. Just you don't see it that way. That's fine, but it doesn't matter how
I
you
don't
see
I don't
it.
think.
It
Well,
matters
here's
how
what I'm
they
saying.
see it. It matters how the communicator sees it. It doesn't matter how you see it. It matters how
That's
the
what I was getting. That's what
communicator
I was
sees it.
getting to. That's what I was getting to. Is that, like I've seen like Republicans go after this sort of gangster culture. When it comes to things like rap music and violent video games, all these sort of things. And, like really just the sort of the way people in our generation, especially like millennials, the way they talk, they dress, they act, they think. The culture that this generation has formed, they're constantly worried about, I guess, like what they would call degeneracy, and they see that sort
Right?
of they
Yes.
see that sort of gangster culture just the same way they saw rock and roll back in the day. Like it doesn't matter necessarily that it's like they might specifically be looking at what you might view as more exclusively black culture these days, and I think that could be because black culture is sort of at least entertainment wise kind of taken over the country. Like
My
it's
I
like
understand. Yes,
rap
it
music
does,
is
and
incredibly
that's not
popular.
necessarily a good thing that entertainment takes over the country. And I don't care what
Well,
sort of
no,
culture it
it
is,
can be.
but it can be, it can
Yeah,
be. But
I
what I'm
should say
saying is,
take over
I
the
guess my
entertainment
point
industry.
is with the code words, and what I'm saying is there's a lot of there's there are more than a couple Jeff Sessions in the Republican Party. Okay,
Yeah,
and I know you
definitely.
don't like Jeff Sessions, but that's what I mean by by the whole
Yeah, the
statement
Hawks.
that if you are a white racist, then you can find a home in the Republican Party. But that doesn't mean
Well, I
that
think if you're a white
if you're a
racist, you
Republican,
could find a home
you're
in any party.
racist.
The fact is, if you're a white
Okay,
racist, first
you
of all,
can, but you're more
racism is
likely
not
to be more
explicitly.
comfortable.
No, the thing is, I don't agree because I've met racists of all types, and I've met racists that are first like there are people out there that are outright fucking Marxist that are racist as well. They don't believe in all of Marx's views on when it comes to identity things, and then, they believe in equality, but for the most part, like they still have some pretty racist ideas about people who are different than themselves. And I've met libertarians that are racist. I've met Republicans that are racist. I've met all sorts of people that are racist. And I don't think
Okay, let me
if
put it
you
like this.
if
Hey,
you
gather a
here's the
group
disconnect.
of
Hold on. Can I finish one thing? I think here's the disconnect I think we're having. I think that you are sort of, assuming that the majority of this like hardcore Christian conservative Republican culture that America has, I think you associate racism with that, with the sort of religious fundamentalist ultra conservative culture. I think that might be why you think that racism is much more popular on the right. You can find a home on the right, in that sense. And I honestly, like, I know I've met racist ANCAPs, people who are supposed to be the most absolute individuals in the world. If you read, I believe his name is Thomas Hoppe. No, I'm sorry, it's not Thomas. Um, it's actually three. I think it's his last name's Hobb. You can look him up. He's an old school ANCAP author, and he's actually a professor at a university right now. And I forget all his personal details, but I know that he is an explicit racist in a lot of his writings. And he's the sort of ANCAP, an anarcho-capitalist, somebody that's supposed to believe in absolute individualism. He is an outright fucking racist. He actually talks about deporting people of different races in order to establish a white ethno state, and he believes in essentially a libertarian white ethno state. where it's like a voluntary sort of like he wants to voluntarily have people leave and everything. Like that is incredibly popular among ANCAPs. Like the people hold his name up as like one of the
Again, a
great.
fringe group. A
It's not a
fringe
fringe group.
group.
A
It
lot of
is
it.
a fringe
It's
group.
not a fringe
Who
group.
what ANCAPs are writing what ANCAPs are writing policy in the United States? Please
Dude,
tell me.
you elect libertarians into office, you'll have some. And trust me,
Okay,
dude. Like
which is mainly in the Republican Party, by the way. Libertarians.
libertarians,
When we're talking
not in
libertarians,
the Republican Party. Libertarians are their own party.
dude,
We're,
The Rand Pauls and the Ron Paul?
Rand
Who do they
Paul is not
caucus?
a
Who do they caucus
libertarian.
with? Who do they
Rand
caucus
Paul
with?
is
Who do
not
the
a
Libertarians
libertarian.
caucus with?
Why,
When you
why
even look at,
Rand Paul and Ron Paul are not the same people. Ron Paul is a libertarian.
I understand, but
Rand
listen,
Paul is
yeah,
nothing like his father. He's not a libertarian.
listen. Take you take
I also
100.
don't think Rand Paul's a
Dude, I'm saying, see,
racist.
your anecdotal experiences don't even matter, though. That's not the point. They don't
It's not
even matter.
anecdotal.
It is very anecdotal, dude.
Public
Dude,
figures.
racism is way more normal in the Republican Party than it is. It's way
Dude,
more of a
I'm
norm in the
talking about
Republican Party than it is the Democratic Party. I mean, straight
all
up,
right.
I don't see how that's even disputable. I don't see how it's even disputable. I
Okay.
don't
Well, first of all,
understand it.
the guy I was talking about was Hans Hermann Hoppe, and he's actually hold on one second. I believe hold on one second. Okay, well, I'm struggling to find what university he actually teaches at right now, but oh, I'm sorry, it's the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Yeah. Okay. That's where this guy teaches from. Like, this is not an anecdotal experience of mine. I'm talking about a professor at a university. Like, this is somebody who teaches people. Like this is not. I'm not telling you like, oh, I've met this guy personally and this is what he thinks. This is a very popular figure amongst the Libertarian Party. Like it's not so like again the only point we're getting a little sidetracked to begin with. The only point I'm trying to make is like I don't think first of all I don't think we're going to, and I also don't think we need to agree that racists are for the most part or like almost exclusively at home on they're in the Republican Party. Like, I just don't understand why the discussion first of all even needs to be had, but also what like I just don't think we're going to agree on it.
The Republican Party, basically what I'm saying is the Republican platform is going to be way more comfortable than the
What
Democratic
a, okay,
platform.
okay.
If you are
So can you substantiate
if
that?
you are a
Can you
racist,
can you
okay?
like why
I mean,
what
anti-immigration
policies serve
policies,
racist ideas?
okay?
What
Anti-immigration policies, and we're not just talking about cracking down on illegal immigration. You talk to if you look at what most Republicans when you pull them, okay, they don't care for immigrants, okay? They don't really care for people that are different from them. And actually,
immigrants are not always
white
different from them.
evangelicals. Not saying that all white evangelicals are racist, but white evangelicalism is very um fascist, or
You could
what's the
say
word I'm looking for? It's like
ethnocentric. You could
it's
say
very
ethnocentric.
ethnocentric, yes, which is essentially racism. Okay, yes, ethnocentrism is a very
Okay,
fancy
well,
term for it, but it's essentially racism.
it's a form of
It's not like
racism.
the I hate N word racism, but it is still racism. I'm sorry, it is different than racial
preference.
bias.
It's a preference more than it's a bias.
It
That's what I
is.
would say.
Everybody has racial bias. Okay, everybody has racial bias. Even
I would
me,
say
who I
I would
claim
say
to like.
everybody actually has racial preference rather than racial. I don't think most people have a racial bias. I think most people actually just have racial preferences.
Really?
Like
See, I disagree. I think everybody has racial
for first,
bias.
let's use
Like I
sex as
think
an
that people
example.
on the left. Hold
Let,
on. I think people on the left will go out of their way to be nicer to a black person than maybe they would a
why
white
would you
person
have to
just
go out of
because
your
they're
way?
black. No, but I'm saying though, that's what I'm saying. Like they overcorrect. They'll overcorrect.
Like you mean like overcompensation. First of
Yes,
all,
exactly.
yeah.
Like they'll.
Here's the
You know what I
thing.
mean?
Okay, so here's the thing. If you're saying that a white racist might be more at home with the Republicans, and like a black racist or a black nationalist or all these sort of things might be more at home with the Democratic Party. Why, first of all, what purpose would the Democratic Party serve for black nationalists? And also, when it comes to like, first of all, nationalism, I don't really see it as a threat to begin with because it's inevitably going to die. It's not really possible for like at least the current way we're going, and I don't think it's really going to be reversed. I don't think there's ever going to be a force great enough to reverse the trend of globalization. So I really see it as just like something that's kind of lingering on its last legs to begin with,
I mean, I
and
kind of see it too. Honestly,
yeah.
I agree
So
with you that I don't find white nationalism as big as a threat as a lot of people would. I think
I
that
personally call myself a civic nationalist, and there's a great difference between that and really any other sort of nationalist. And civic nationalism would be better named as a liberal nationalism. Is essentially what it is. Um, it's really just like the fundamental belief in the existence of a border in a nation state, not giving way to full globalization, allowing for multiculturalism, allowing for the sort of melting pot culture that America is, um, but not necessarily just absolutely throwing away the entire concept of borders and national sovereignty.
see, I agree and disagree with that because I think that I would think that we could get to a point where we don't need borders, but there needs to be an enlightenment first. You can't just have it. You can't just willy nilly like take away borders. Like right as of now,
Well into the
you
future,
need
I'm pro open
borders.
borders.
You need borders now. You need all this.
Yeah, for
Islam
now.
is a threat. I mean,
Well,
there's
not
other
just not
threats
just
in the
Islam.
world.
Like Islam,
I know,
when
but
it comes to
I just said that because
borders,
it's one of the biggest, most obvious ones right now. I mean, you know what
yeah,
I
I mean,
mean? To
I would consider communism more of a threat than Islam, personally. There's more. There's
see,
a.
I just don't see that. I don't understand that at all because I mean, even these countries that claim to be
I mean,
communist aren't really even
the
communist,
Cold War lasted for 45 years and it ended in 1991.
right? Maybe
We're
we can
not
call them
that
something
far.
different, man.
We're
But
not that
are
far
they
removed.
communists? Are they really communists though?
Do you think the North Koreans are communists? And wait,
Um, yeah, I don't
let me
know.
rephrase that. Let me rephrase that because I don't actually expect you to agree or disagree with that. Here's the thing: no actual real communism, in my view, is actually I think in really any informed view, no true communism has ever actually existed because it's not
No,
possible
it
for it
hasn't. It
to have
hasn't.
ever actually existed. But there's a difference between a communist government and a communist party in government. Obviously, I do believe that the North Koreans are ideologically communist when it comes to what they can actually practically achieve. Obviously, they can't actually practically achieve communism because true communism
Yeah.
cannot really be
So
achieved until there's a worldwide revolution and literally every country on
see,
the planet has to
I see.
revolt.
I don't see the North Koreans as that as. I don't know why. I I think that North
I
Korea
don't think
is a
they're a great
threat
threat
to
either.
South Korea. Yeah, I don't see.
But
I
I
think
think Russia
Russia
and
is a
China
huge
are.
threat, and China are a threat. I think China's a threat economic. But see, I see China as less of a threat. Well, I don't know now because with the thing going on with the presidency over there now. I mean, maybe it's more of a threat. I see
Well,
the
they're about to
kind of like your
meditated.
argument kind of like your argument with Donald Trump, which I disagree with Donald Trump, but the Chinese I've always seen as kind of able to be kind of malleable, even though I mean
Well, they're incredible. We
I
talk about Law and Order. That's like the most obedient,
yeah I
sort
see
of
them as more
disciplined
they
culture in
can
the world.
yeah they can chill in the world. Maybe I don't agree with them, and maybe
They're
they
very
fuck their
tolerant of
people
authority.
over.
Yeah, like they're
Yeah,
very
you
very
know.
tolerant of totalitarianism because they have a very disciplined sort of traditionalist culture in China.
Right, but as a world threat, like yes, but I mean
They're over a
maybe
billion
now I can
people.
see
They
them
dwarf the
as
United
more of a
States.
threat with this, yeah, because they're about to be a dictatorship. But
They dwarf the United States.
I absolutely see Russia as a threat. Putin, I do not think, and by any stretch of imagination, this Putin is anybody's friend. I
In
mean,
reality, China is the greatest threat to pretty much everybody in the world. People ignore China, but
yeah,
the thing is,
well, no, I
China
mean,
is the most successful capitalist nation in the world right now.
yes.
And
So China in different ways. I think that I could maybe agree with you that China's a bigger threat, but I think Putin is more malicious.
we should say potential
Okay,
threats rather than like they're not
potential
active
threat.
threats.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Putin is an active threat. Putin is very
You could
malicious,
consider
and
well,
he's
especially after what he just fucking did over in the UK. If you heard about that, yeah,
yeah,
Putin is
right,
definitely an
yeah,
active
and
threat. I'll definitely
meddling
agree.
in our
Putin
elections,
is an
and
active
you know what
threat.
I'm saying, and just meddle not only in our elections, meddling in elections
Within
in
Trump's
Europe, and
presidency, he's already had to push back against Putin. I absolutely agree that Putin is an active threat. You know, like the response he had to Trump attacking the Syrian Air Force base when the chemical weapons were used over there. That was sometime last year. I forget the exact date, but like you remember when that happened? Like
yeah, I remember that.
when that happened, like that was shocking to me because first of all, I don't really think Trump and Putin are actually really that compatible. Like they might be friends personally, but I don't think ideologically they agree on a damn
I don't
thing.
think they're friends. I really do think that. I think
I
that
think they might
Putin
be
has Trump
acquaintances.
by the balls, is what I think.
No,
I really
I
do.
think they might be acquaintances at best, honestly. But
Maybe, but
first of all,
I really think that he has Trump by the balls on something. Whether
I don't
it's
see why they would be compatible at all because I think if you sit the two of them down in the room, I don't think they're going to agree on really anything past like sort of basic nationalist policies because that's really the only thing they actually share in common. As
I
far
don't
as
really
I can see
think
what they
that
believe
matters
in.
though. Going back, like I truly think that Putin. I mean, why would I just think it's pretty clear. I mean, why
I just
he's
don't
not
see why
enacting
Putin
the
benefits from
sanctions.
Trump.
I mean,
How does Putin benefit from Trump is the question I'm asking.
what are you talking about, man? I mean, he's able to sow discord in the nation. I mean, he got the. I mean, he still
There's
hasn't the
already discord
sanctions.
in the
The
nation.
sanctions. No,
There's
but
already
listen,
discord
man.
in the
Okay,
nation.
that's yeah, but that's an extremely simplistic way of looking at it. Okay, there
There's always been
you can
discord in
so
America.
you can yes, there always has been, but you can add more and you can make it more chaotic for your benefit. The
I don't
CIA
think
is
political
did this all the
tensions.
time. Okay, the CIA are practically experts at toppling governments without firing a shot.
Here's the thing:
Okay,
political tensions in America have been boiling over since its fucking foundation. Like
right, and that
they have
doesn't, but that
always
doesn't
been
mean that
hotter
Putin
here.
hasn't taken advantage of it and accelerated the
Oh,
process.
absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
that's what
He
I'm
takes
saying,
advantage of
man.
every country he
But
comes across.
that's the advantage of Trump, and the advantage of Trump as well is I don't care what you say about Hillary
You don't think
Clinton.
he would just take
Hillary,
advantage of anybody that's in power? He sort
well,
of
I don't
he
listen.
necessarily has to
You
do
can
so.
say what you want about Hillary Clinton. You can hate her and say she's corrupt, and that's fine. But she's a fucking hawk, and I do not think that even I don't think that Putin's really scared of anybody. But I think that Putin would much rather have a Trump in office than Hillary Clinton, or you know what I mean?
I don't think.
I
I
definitely do.
mean, like, I definitely think Hillary probably would have been more likely to maybe try to go to war with Russia. Like, I don't think it actually would have happened, but it definitely,
No, but I
it,
think that she would have definitely
in
enacted
one way it could
sanctions. I
have.
mean, you
Well,
know,
here's the thing. Like, it could have happened, but here's like we're honestly not. I don't think in our lifetimes, at least, we're never really going to get to the point where we're going to have a mainland invasion
no, I
of
don't
either
think of
America or
no,
Russia. So,
no,
like,
I
I'm
don't
not.
think so either.
When I say like there could be a potential war between America and Russia, in reality, it would be in like sister states. You know, like it would be in
Right.
smaller countries that are
I
allies.
agree. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. In Syria,
Yeah.
you know.
Well. You know, yeah, like Syria. Syria is definitely a big focal point when it comes to a lot of that. Um, so yeah, like that could be a potential place for it. But Syria especially is actually a good example because I think one of the questions that was asked, and I think the second presidential debate last year to Hillary Clinton was that if there was a Russian jet that violated an American no-fly zone, would Hillary Clinton demand the plane be shot down? And she didn't really give a solid answer on it. Um, she definitely didn't say yes, and she definitely didn't. She really didn't make it clear either way.
Right.
She
Well, you
kind of
know
dodged the
what though?
question.
Sometimes, yeah, but you know what though? In her defense on that one, and even if Trump were to dodge that question, that's a very complicated issue. That's a very, I mean, does it really deserve an answer at that point
I
in
mean,
time? And I know,
wouldn't
you know what
you
I mean?
like
Like,
what do you feel about no-fly zones?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's so. I would need to be more prepared to answer that question in an intelligent way, man. I mean, that's a tough one. It's complicated. Part of me wants to say that it has to do with sovereignty. You know what I mean? Like no fly zones. I mean, where does it stop? Where does border stop? Up, down, all around. You know what I mean?
Well, I
And
mean,
then
I mean, here's the
And then
thing,
there's the
like,
argument we're over in a foreign country anyway. It's not our airspace anyway in
I
Syria,
think the
you know.
idea of no-fly zones, I think that's useful in practice in most cases, but I can really see how it can be taken advantage of. That's my issue with them.
Well,
And
yeah, I mean, sure, and that's why I said it's cops, Kate. I don't even really feel comfortable with the question right now
yeah,
because I just
I
don't. And
understand.
I honestly don't know how I feel about it. To be honest with you, I really don't know. I just don't know. I just know that going back to like yeah, China and Russia, like China is the potential threat. Russia is an active threat to basically not just America, but just liberal democracy in general. Putin does not want to see liberal democracies flourish in the world.
Well,
He does
no, no,
not.
no. Of course not. He's an outright dictator. He's been the
And
president
I
since
don't know.
2000.
Well, right, and I don't know about China, and I don't know about now with this current president, but that's why what I meant by China being like kind of chill. Like, I don't know if China like really cared whether like I think China could have been that country that maybe is a potential threat, but they're like, yeah, whatever. If you want your liberal democracies, have them because we just have so many people and we're just economically fucking crazy anyway,
I would
so it
say
doesn't
anybody that's
matter.
been president. I would say anybody that's been president of their country for 18 years is probably a considerable threat.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. No, I mean,
Yeah,
fucking, I agree. Yeah, I
that
not
guy
trying to
definitely
down.
has
I'm
power.
not trying to downplay it. I just think it's a different threat. I think is what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, like I mean, here, like
I mean,
it's a
it's
bit more of a distant threat. It might be an active threat, just in
yeah,
the same sense that Islam is an active
yeah. It's
threat.
just like
It's sort of the same distinction I would make between, like, I mean, radical like Christian fundamentalism and everything. Like, I would still say that's a threat. You do still see the occasional Christian terror, like Christian motivated terrorist.
yeah.
You know,
Well, you gotta watch their what they do in policy. So
well, I'm
like
also
you
talking
gotta
about
be.
violence.
Well, yeah, there are. I don't know.
Violence directly affects
Yeah.
people. We can forget about policy when guns are drawn and bombs are
Well,
blown.
right, yeah, and they're only like certain types of people that blow up abortion clinics and shit. I mean, they tend to be fundamentalist Christians and
Yeah,
shit.
but here's the thing: every
You
religion,
know.
almost every religion on the planet is against abortion. Buddhists are against abortion. They
Well,
actually,
no, I understand, but no, I know what you're saying. I'm kind
in America,
of right, but it's
in
not like
America,
this.
yeah, it's most likely
It's
to be
not
it's
like
most
this.
likely to
Oh
be a
shit!
Christian
Like
fundamentalist because the majority
yeah,
of people here are Christians. Like that, like
right.
that's an obvious, unavoidable statistical reality. Is like you have more Christians in this country than you have Buddhists, and so you're more likely to see a Christian fundamentalist running a bomb into an abortion clinic than you are to see a Buddhist burning himself alive outside of a mosque. Like that, like you're obviously just by virtue of the fact of where you are on the planet, you're more likely to see that here in America. Whereas
Yeah,
in a
definitely.
country like India, which has like over a billion people, actually, it's somewhere closer to 2 billion now. I think
Yeah.
I forget the last numbers I seen were, but like there, the most common sort of terrorism that you see is between Islam and Hindus,
Well, right.
and like they attack each other.
But we were making a comparison. I want to go back. Like China to me seems more like that kind of Christian threat in the United States. Like it's there. You just got to be vigilant of it. That's why I was like comparing it to policy. Like you got to watch what the Christians are doing with policy. That's where they're a threat, right? You just got to be vigilant. It's not like it's like, oh my God, the sky's falling. It's just like, okay, you got to be vigilant of the Chinese. You got to be vigilant of
Yeah,
the
and you gotta be
fundamentalists.
vigilant of the Christian fundamentalists. Well, like I really
Putin.
would rather say Catholic fundamentalists because I don't again the term Christian fundamentalist to me seems like sort of absurd. I don't really understand like
Well,
the idea of Christian fundamentalist. It's sort of like it doesn't seem to mean anything really because like how exactly could you be a
I guess
Christian
okay.
fundamentalism
I guess when I'm
like
saying Christian fundamentalists, I'm thinking like evangelical Christian
Catholics? I think.
fundamentalists as far as policy goes. As
Yeah,
Catholics, although with policy, yeah, Catholics have ideas and stuff and they vote, but
Catholics are
evangelical
a bit
are
are really
really the
the
ones that are
real.
pushing the policy decisions in the Republican Party.
What like
Okay,
do you know
that's
what
the
do you know what actually makes a Christian fundamentalist in like in at least in the view of most people who consider themselves like Christian moderates, whatnot, like what separates them from those sort of fundamentalists? Because like probably heard this question a lot, like asked towards religious people of like if you believe in this part of the Bible, why don't actually believe in this part. And like people will try to draw contradictions, and usually
Well,
they'll find them between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And what they don't understand that the reason we call people Christians is because they've actually believed in the story of Jesus Christ. They don't actually believe in the
right,
entire Holy Bible. They believe in the
right.
New Testament, the story of Jesus Christ himself, which was written by Emperor Constantine. I believe he was the 14th emperor of Rome. And like that's specifically what they believe in as Christians. So even a fundamentalist Christian, it's not the same thing as a sort of a Catholic or like a fundamentalist Catholic that believes in the Old Testament. This is one of the big separations also between Christians and Jews is that first of all, Jesus himself was Jewish, and
See,
the
I
Jewish
understand.
the
Right.
Jewish Bible is essentially just the Old
I
Testament.
think that's splitting hairs though. That we're getting into philosophy. That's what I'm saying. Words mean different things in different contexts, right? When someone you clearly know what someone means when they're talking about a religious fundamentalist. You're talking about someone that just can't leave someone else the fuck alone, basically.
Well,
Right?
I would prefer
I
to just
mean,
identify it more accurately and say like
well,
there are Catholic
yeah, actually, you know
fundamentalists.
what? I think that we should call evangelical, not all of them, but the ones that are trying. I think we should call them fucking fascists. We should call them what they are. They're
Well, yeah,
fascists. I
like,
mean,
well, first of all, like, if you mean fascism as in like as a term that's just sort of interchangeable
I
with
mean fascism
authoritarianism.
as authoritarianism, exactly.
Well,
Fascism.
first of all,
The
there's a lot of
no,
different types
because
of
there's a nationalistic
totalitarianism.
component to white evangelicalism. Okay,
Well,
so
I mean,
that's why it's
first of
fascism and
all,
not
like,
just
I
authoritarian.
don't necessarily agree that like evangelicalism is necessarily related to a white identity. Like I know, I've personally within my own family there are black evangelical Christians.
Okay,
My
it is not
stepdad's black,
necessary. It is
and
not necessarily, but it is. It can. I mean,
you could say there's a
there's
majority, and
there is a
the
majority.
yeah, okay. But the thing is that there's a majority of white people in the country, so you like I don't know really how you expect you any like how do you expect any other result? You know, there are plenty. For first of all, like, do you know that actually black traditionally black churches? I have a terrible speech impediment sometimes. I think a stutter. But the majority of black churches are actually doing better than white churches as far as attendance goes. Like you're really
Yeah,
hard not to find a whole lot of black atheists.
black churches tend to be pretty. I mean, they tend to be against homosexuality as well. I
Well,
mean,
I'm not just saying that, but I'm just talking about
no, but
like
I'm
the
saying
simple
no. I'm
attendance and popularity.
no, but I know. But that's what I'm saying. Like to your point, like I mean, black Christianity can be fairly. I don't know, whatever. Fun.
It's
It's
actually
hardcore, man. It's hardcore.
it's being pretty well preserved and like it's not
Yeah.
deteriorating much like the way like the thing is traditionally white churches like churches that used to have majority white crowds a lot of those people are starting to just die off. Those are
Right.
older
Right.
generations and younger white people aren't going to church, but younger black people still are on higher trends. You like so it's like we could see that sort of cultural
I
shift.
mean, but you know exactly what I'm saying. You can't when you're in a conversation, you can't sit and nitpick and define every little thing. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. There is a fascist group of religious people in
Well,
America
I guess it really
that are
just depends what
evangelical Christians, and that doesn't mean
yeah.
all evangelical Christians are fascists or are a threat. But there is a specific,
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
you know,
As far as fascism goes, I definitely agree that they are absolutely totalitarian. And if you're saying fascism in the sense of just like the word we use as interchangeable with totalitarian, authoritarianism, those sort of people generally just use
well,
fascist
like
to
I said,
describe authoritarians in
there
general.
is a nationalistic
But
component to it, and you cannot tell me
so
that they
like
are
yeah, like
preserving this
fascism
white
specifically.
evangelical kind of
Well,
the ones that are they are preserving being white is a component of this. I don't care. I mean,
well, I'm
it's
not
just
saying it's not, but being any race is a component of whatever your religion is, because a lot of them are based off of the sort of, not necessarily ethnicities, but certainly national histories.
ethnocentrism. I
Yeah,
mean, but that's
the
why
funny
I
thing
would.
is, well,
That's why I'm saying that's why I would call the evangelical Christians that are pushing for I mean, they're very. A lot of them have the very fascist ideas. I mean, these groups
yeah,
pushing for
I
fascist
can
policy.
agree. I can agree if you mean fascism as in just like outright nationalist sort of authoritarianism, but like the actual when it comes to fascism, like when you actually comparing something to like the party of Mussolini, like that is something I think much worse than a lot of people were actually giving it
Well,
credit
let's
for.
see
When
here.
when you compare
It's
it to
hold
what
on.
you actually have today, the thing that like fascism in Italy was what drove the country to go to war with Britain and France. Like that is very extreme, and I don't think that like this whatever fascist streak that you're referring to exists in America as far as that demographic goes. I don't think it's necessarily the same sort of fascism that we've seen historically. I think it might be a sort of
I think it is the
unwitting
same sort, just not to
fascism.
the same degree. I think you're
That
confusing.
that that's what I should say. That's what I should like. That's
And
kind of
I
what I want to
totally
say.
agree with that word, degree. Yes,
Yeah.
it's not the same degree, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
not quite
same
the
sort of
same.
thinking. It is the same sort of thinking.
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
there are two different like we'll put it like this. There are
it's
people
just like
who
I
are
told you, my aunt
there
and uncle.
like
Go ahead, yeah.
the way I'll say it is like there are people who are against illegal immigration, and then there are people who are against immigration based on ethnicities and shit like that. Like obviously you're gonna find you know outright fascist people who are just, well, first of all, I don't really see anti-immigration policies as necessarily inherently fascist, but I really just
No,
see
I
it,
don't.
like nationalism is not inherently fascist either. It's not even really like I don't even think it's really inherently authoritarian either. I don't think the enforcement of borders or the existence of a nation state is inherently authoritarian. I think it's just it's a methodology of achieving what you want to achieve. It's just sort of counter globalization, and it's kind of all structured on the most of what you'll hear from people who are like whether they're civic nationalists or any sort of like hardcore like right wing ethno nationalist or whatever. Um, they all sort of universally agree on one thing, and I would even agree with this is the fact that there is no need for nationalism in a world that's not globalizing, and it's always going to be a sort of reactionary thing with nationalism because it's fundamentally based on that. It's the resistance to globalism. That's the core of the belief behind nationalism is to resist global entities, to resist global power, and to preserve national sovereignty and the existence of your nation state. Um, that's the core belief of pretty much all nationalists. And so the thing is, like, I believe in that. As far as the future goes, when it comes to like open borders and everything, I'm not anti-immigration, and I'm not even the thing is like I think any logical person would agree that they're against illegal immigration. My method of dealing with it is different than most people. I'm pretty pro-amnesty, honestly. I think if
No, I
somebody
am too. I'm not even necessarily. I mean, I don't know what against illegal immigration. I guess to say yes, it's maybe should be illegal, but what? But most of these people are coming here. You have to understand. Like most of these people are coming here. Actually, honestly, my way of dealing, I'm pro amnesty too. You know what my way of dealing with illegal immigration is to crack down on the companies hiring these immigrants.
Absolutely, that is the one of the first things that needs to happen. That is one of the biggest problems. I just made a post about this today on Facebook with this. Are you seeing this article probably being shared around how California crops are rotting because there's a shortage of workers, and obviously through anti-immigration policies
Right,
and whatnot,
right.
and people are seeing this as a bad thing, and I think you are so easily persuaded to believe in what I essentially see as slavery. Like I'm against outsourcing and illegal immigration for fundamentally mostly the same reason, and I think it allows for corporate exploitation of workers.
It
That's the main
does. No, it absolutely does.
it's the
These
main
My
reason I'm
mom works
against
at
both of those
Freshmark, dude.
things.
She's an administrator at Freshmark. I can tell you, my mom sees it firsthand every single day. The exploitation of Mexican immigrants or Hispanic immigrants. I
Well,
mean,
immigrants, no matter
us.
where you're from, you're very easy to exploit because you have no rights.
Well,
If you're an
right. I'm
illegal
just saying
immigrant, you have
in
no
this
rights.
example, it tends to be Hispanic immigrants at Freshmark here in Maslin. I
Yeah.
mean,
Like
the very
there
specific.
are natural human rights, like sort of fundamental, universal, respected human rights that America does adhere to when it comes to illegal immigrants. Like we can't just obviously we're not just going to deport all illegal immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. You can't do that. But my issue is that you should not want to immigrate to a country illegally because you are going to have a very hard time. It is not going to be the pleasant dream that's being made out for you to be. You need to go through the legal process for your own sake, and because otherwise, if you work for a company that is willing to hire illegal immigrants, they're going to exploit you. I guarantee it. In some ways, whether you might not even be aware of. And I'm
Right, but that's the
strongly
job of this. I mean, not. I mean, I'm saying it's not the job of the state to maybe, I don't know if the right word
enforce
I'm looking for
workers'
is
rights.
punish. Yeah, you have to enforce workers' right, and part of that is immigration. So, in order to stop, if you really want to stop illegal immigration in America, you take away the opportunities for the immigrants,
I don't
the
necessarily want to
illegal immigrants.
stop illegal immigration as much as I
No,
want
I
to.
know.
I would
Well,
like
I
to.
understand,
I would like to
but
help illegal immigrants do it
well,
differently.
right, they're not going to come here if there are no opportunities for them to do it under the radar, like they,
Well,
you know,
I don't think that's true. There are plenty of people who would immigrate here legally if they could do it quicker. The problem is that the process needs to be extradited a little bit, and it needs to be speeded up quite a bit. Is basically what I should say.
well, yeah, no, it
It
should
takes
be,
far
yeah.
too long for a lot of people. If you're coming from a third world country, or even just like a country that's torn with crime, a place like Mexico and whatnot, and is generally pretty impoverished in comparison to America, you don't really have a great deal of time to wait. Like,
No, you
if
don't.
you need to leave, you need to leave, and like
Right.
that should be considered, in my opinion. And because you give people enough time, things could change, and they could lose the opportunity to come to America, and then it doesn't work out, and then like that's a tragic story we're gonna hear, and so like generally. I would just like to change the system in a way that encourages people to a greater extent to do the immigration process legally. And it like I'm not saying necessarily needs to be incentivized, but there's a lot of barriers in place. And for the most part, the barriers, I understand why they exist because for the most part, America has a merit-based immigration system where they try to exclusively bring people who are not only going to be benefited by the country, but will also benefit the country themselves as well. And, so they try to find people who are, like they show potential when it comes to schooling, and they could be engineers, they could work in the STEM fields, and like, that's a large part of how the legal immigration process in America functions, is that it seeks people out on a merit-based process, and rather than a necessity-based process. You get what I mean?
No, yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and like that's the problem that I take with it personally, is that like we need to consider necessity for for people's immigration, like how vital is it that they get out of where they are. And so like that's why I'm much more pro actual refugees when it comes to that I am mass migrants. When it comes to things like economic migrants, I'm not very sympathetic to them, because like the thing is, there, especially when it comes to adult military age men that have become economic migrants, and like we're not talking about refugees of war. We're not talking about people who are being
No,
violently
I know
removed from their
exactly what you're saying,
country.
man. Yeah,
We're
I
talking
get
about
what you're
people who are
saying.
like they don't like the current state of their country, so they want to leave. It's not like
Right,
they're not like they could be oppressed in some degree, but they're not being violently like thrown out of the country or killed or anything like that.
right.
But
I
like
get it.
so those people like that's the majority of mass immigration, is people just simply getting fed up with their country and having these
But
mass
at the same time,
exoduses.
like, even though I'm less sympathetic to that, though, I don't necessarily disagree with it, because what if I don't personally want to, but what if I wanted to move to France or Denmark because I like the countryside, or I want to live in Europe? I want the culture. I find that culture more appealing than my culture. I mean, there are a number of different ways, or a number of different motives for someone to
Well, I
immigrate
think if you have
somewhere. I mean,
I think if you have an
you know what I mean?
appreciation for a different culture and you want to move there, that's great. And I'm not saying we should base it off this totally like merit-based system or anything like
Right.
that. I think we should consider merit, but we should also consider necessity. We should consider how important is it that this person gets to this country? Like, does their life
Yeah, no, I agree.
depend on
Like you
it?
said, right, like refugee, like a refugee.
Yeah,
If
like
there's
if their
three,
life
if
depends on
there's
it, I'd give
three
them
slots,
priority.
and there's four, there's three slots. There's four people. You let the three refugees in before you let the other guy in. I mean, I get it.
Yeah,
I mean, I
the
totally
guy that
agree
just
with
wants to
that.
go in school like the
Right.
guy that
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
wants
Yeah.
to
No,
go to
I
school,
completely
you
agree
know.
with that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same
Yeah.
time, I mean, yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, going back to the legal immigration. That's it, man. Instead of you crack down on the fucking companies. That's it, and that's the hypocrisy of the Republican Party, and then the Democratic Party doesn't really do much about immigration, and that's where they fail, and that's why they lose potential voters. Because you know what I mean, because something needs to be
Mhm.
done about immigration, and you can't just have a full amnesty position on it. But
Well, I mean, it's
that's the
immigration, it's guns, it's outsourcing, all those sort
no.
of
I'm not
things.
saying it's that just
Yeah.
immigration. I'm saying we're talking about. I'm not just
Yeah, yeah, I mean, but like
immigration. I'm saying we're
as far
talking
as
about
things that
immigration.
affect the working class, for the most part, like immigration is a big
For the
issue
most, for the
because,
most, it is. But I think it's a big non-issue. Like, automation is
well, I mean, I
something
definitely
that
wouldn't say
should
it's a
way be.
non-issue.
But
Um,
dude, listen. If I had to sit down and make a plan and say you need to prepare for either immigrant, you need to prepare your working class citizens for automation or immigration. Yes, both. I mean, it shouldn't be an
well, you can
ultimatum,
prevent
one or
one, you
the
can't
other.
prevent the other.
But no one's paying attention. No one's talking to you. How many politicians you hear talking about automation? How many people? I mean, this is what we should be preparing for.
No,
Yes, we
automation
should.
is
We should.
inevitable. The difference is that you can prevent one of them and you can't prevent the other. You cannot prevent
That's
inevitable
what I'm
automation.
saying. We should be yes, but you don't just because you can't prevent it. We should be planning on this.
Well, I'm saying
This
like
is
you
going to
can't
be
oppose it. Like there's nothing you can do
no,
to
you can't
oppose
oppose it,
automation.
but you can plan for it. You can find ways
Yeah, the
to
alternatives need to be made for
adapt to it. You
jobs
have
that
to
are
adapt to
automated.
it, basically.
Yeah,
No one's
like
planning. No one's preparing on how to adapt to this economy that's coming. Okay,
well,
inevitably
individuals
coming,
shouldn't be
and
expected to
everybody.
adapt, and like, individuals
No,
shouldn't be
no,
expected to adapt
no,
that way.
no, no. I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about our leaders, and I'm talking about
Oh
either
yeah,
side.
yeah.
I'm not even damning one side or the other on this. I'm saying both are failing miserably. The Republicans and the Democrats are failing miserably on talking about this and bringing this to light and preparing for this inevitable economy. You know what I mean? And then as far as immigration goes, yes, it is definitely not a non-issue, but I don't think like all these people talking about like I don't know. Personally, I'm not worried about an immigrant taking my job. So
No, I'm more worried about
maybe
my
it
job going overseas than I'm worried about an immigrant
well,
taking my
yeah,
job.
and that's what I'm saying. Like medicine, all these people that say, well, if you don't like they get a better job, if you're afraid about an immigrant taking your job, then you should get another job.
Well, overseas or
Yeah,
over the
you know what I
border, I should
mean?
say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
mean, that's what I'm saying. Like,
outsourcing is a greater reason for loss of jobs than immigration is.
yeah, then immigrants exactly.
As far
But
as keeping jobs in America, we should crack down more on outsourcing than we should necessarily on
yeah,
immigration.
I mean, I definitely agree. But then how do you say that as someone who believes in liberty, though philosophically, when you say if a company wants to, I mean, I would say tax them more. You know what I mean, like or something.
There are some things you have to do out of necessity for the good of your country, and if more jobs are leaving the country than are jobs that are coming
Right.
in or being created, that is not good for your economy, and that's
Well, you
not
know
good for your
what?
society.
I actually agree because
Yeah, like
that's my argument for universal health care and education is that there are some things you just have to do for the good of your country. You want an
yeah,
educated, healthy workforce. I mean, why wouldn't
yeah,
you? What the
absolutely.
fuck is the matter with you if you don't want that? Like
No,
for your country.
everybody should want people to be healthy and educated, and I think, I think one of the mistakes me and you personally make between ourselves, is first we talk an awful lot about what other people believe rather than what we ourselves believe, and I think that leads to a lot of the conversations and like the disagreements that me and you might have. They're just sort of unnecessary because we're not really focusing on what we actually personally want to get done and what we actually want to achieve for the country. So it's like really at the end of the day, we can't change whether people believe, and all these sort of groups when it comes to like whether it's radicals or moderates or whatever party we're criticizing and everything. We don't have the power to change those sort of things, but we have the power to express our own ideas.
Well,
So
right.
so like I think we should focus more on that and probably try to get past the sort of affiliations that we might have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think we should. I think we should end on that too tonight. Actually, for a
Hmm.
future itinerary. We just go, focus on less with whatever group
Yeah.
whatever agrees with. because I
Yeah.
honestly I don't agree with everybody I support necessarily,
You would,
or I
I would
mean,
say nobody agrees with everything that any other
well,
person
well,
says.
right, but I'm saying, I mean, there's even
Yeah.
people that I would probably vastly disagree with some things, but
Yeah,
I
like there are Marxists who you didn't like Marxist hair. So like, like
right,
I'm joking.
yeah,
But like
no, I know, right,
there's
right.
plenty of disagreement even amongst the most devout followers of anything. So
Like John McCain, I disagree with many of his policies, but I respect that. I would want John McCain in the Senate. When it comes to dealing with someone like Russia. You know what I mean? Like I would want a John McCain
well, he's
in
definitely got
in the
experience with
government.
commies.
Well, right, right, but just as an example,
Yeah.
there's certain people you want as allies, and because
Guy was literally tortured by commies. So,
right, right.
yeah.
That motherfucker is not going to be swayed by.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not just that, but he wouldn't really be a friend of Putin either.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Oh,
exactly,
but before
exactly.
we end, I do want to talk about one thing real quick first. The whole we mentioned it briefly earlier, but did you hear about what happened in the UK over the
Yeah,
past
yeah,
week?
about the spy, the ex-spy that got poisoned or whatever, or
Yeah, what are
the.
your thoughts about that? Like, I know you don't like conspiracy theories, but this is a fucking conspiracy theory I'm into.
Well, I took it at face value that Russian asset became British asset and got poisoned by Russians. I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
don't
like, I
know,
mean,
man.
like,
It's
do you
pretty.
actually do you think that this could actually be something that's so blatant and so obvious that might actually be obligated to take action on this? But like, maybe not necessarily America,
Oh,
but
oh, oh.
like the United
Yeah,
Nations might be obligated to have some sort of response to this because
I
this is
hate
out in the
to.
open.
Yeah, I know, and I heard
And the
that
guy survived
the
too.
guy survived, and not
Yeah,
only that, I heard that 10 other people were being treated. So
there's
it's
actually
not just the
25.
25. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So yeah, regardless, it's not just the spy, right? Like live by the, so you can't say live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing, right? Because
Hmm.
other now innocents are caught in the crossfire, innocent British citizens. Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Because I'm typically, if you hear my views on espionage, you'd probably think I was pretty hard right wing. But
Well, here's the thing. This is the second assassination of a Russian official. Well, this will
yeah,
obviously
that
be
one
a
guy that was the
previous.
radioactive tea. Hmm.
Actually, I should say the third. I forgot. Like, there was another guy in Turkey that was shot. There's an ambassador of
Oh,
Russia.
okay.
Well, I
Yeah,
should
you're
say
right.
I forgot about that one. So this is actually the third within
How
the
about
last
the how
year.
about the one in the United States that fucking had a heart attack and fell when he was drunk? It
I
was
didn't.
like real
I don't know
suspicious
if
and
I heard
shit.
about that one.
Yeah, no, it was like real. It was like obvious
Well, the thing is, Putin's
attack and
killing people
fell.
all the time. Putin
Yeah,
is
well, Putin's he's I mean, he's KGB, dude. KGB,
yeah.
for all intents and purposes, I know they were a spy organization, but they were really just organized crime thugs. I mean, they're very good
Yeah.
at it. They're very scary
Well, very
spy
much like the
organization.
CIA here in America.
Well, yeah, yeah, I'd say the CIA has more bureaucracy to them, though, and I know it's splitting hairs, but do you know what I mean, though? Like
No, I mean, yeah, like
it's
obviously
more
The Russian officials are gonna favor their oligarchs, and the American
right,
officials they're gonna
right.
favor their big corporations, shit like that.
Yeah, 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 for sure. It's just more um it's more, I don't know, it's more semblance of class, I guess. Maybe that's the wrong word. I
Yeah,
know it
the only thing I
makes
find
no
strange is
difference.
that like people are often associating like Putin's sort of tactics with like you hear like not just conspiracy theories, but there's a lot of people who have these ideas that the military is really doing a lot of things very secretly that we don't know about, that
Right.
they're going through into different countries and assassinating specific people to cede power and all these sort of things. You hear those sort of things discussed about America, whereas for the most part, you don't really see it discussed when it comes to Russia, and it's actually true for Russia. Like,
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, you're right. And I think, well, I think because I don't know what you can say about the CIA nowadays, but back in the 40s and 50s, the CIA did get itself quite the reputation, and we have destabilized and overthrown quite a few governments in our day.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that
mean,
we
like I
definitely
said
have.
before, without even firing a shot. I mean, in some cases, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
there are things that people call economic hitmen. I know that.
Right, right.
People like
But
they'll
yeah, but
send
you're right.
agents
Like,
in to to destroy economies and send them into a
yeah,
nation.
right, but Russia is literally like you're saying, like doing this like spy movie back alley like type shit and secret
Yeah,
military ops and like
like
yeah, I
it
mean look what
seems
happened in
increasingly
Ukraine for
often
fuck's
too.
sakes. I
Oh
mean
yeah, absolutely.
that's
Like
like obvious one.
yeah, I think it really goes back to the fact that like they definitely are a current active threat. Like they seem to be making a lot more moves recently, just in general.
Yeah,
Like you've always kind of heard about it. Like, yeah, Putin kills political dissidents. You won't hear about most of them. You probably can't even find their names. It's like the people who are blacklisted. They hardly even exist in our history anymore. You know, like that sort of thing. But now it just
right.
seems like he's doing it straight up out in the open, and we're all
Yeah,
finding
no,
out about
he's
it.
basically saying like, well, I mean you're gonna I think you're going to disagree with me on this one. Maybe I don't know, but I truly think that he feels a little more brazen and bolden with Donald Trump in power because Donald Trump has alienated us from some of our allies in NATO and stuff like that, and
Well, I
Putin
mean,
feels
here
in a stronger
I have
position.
I have my own sense of alienation for many of America's allies, and I think that it goes both ways. First of all, I'm not I don't give a whole lot I don't give a whole lot of credence to a whole lot of European countries that criticize us because first of all, America is a much younger country than a lot of these European countries we're constantly in conflict with. When it comes to who's leading us, what our policies are, like how we're going as a nation. I'm very sort of intolerant towards a lot of European philosophers and just the ideas that
Okay,
you
but
see kind of
listen,
come out of
I
Europe.
know, but I'm not talking
I don't really care if
philosophy.
like
I'm
our
talking about
European
talking about
allies are a little
I'm
bit
talking about
dissatisfied with
leaders.
us.
I'm
Yeah,
talking
but
about
like
the leaders, though.
even our leaders, like I don't respect Theresa May, I don't respect Angela Merkel, I don't respect Jeremy Corbyn, I don't respect I can't pronounce his fucking name, but the current prime minister of France. Um,
But you
yeah,
don't have to respect those people. Just like
well, those are
I
the
don't
world
have to
leaders you're talking
respect.
about.
But listen, just like I don't have to respect George Bush or whoever was prime minister at the time didn't have to respect George Bush. But there's something greater there to respect is my point, and it is the history. It is the fact that we have democratic processes in that Barack Obama isn't the dictator of the United States, and even though you might not be able to not you personally, but say I'm a leader of France or whatever, I might not be able to personally
Emmanuel
respect.
Macron is the best way I can pronounce it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy. I
yeah.
might not be able to personally respect Barack Obama like I may have respected George Bush, but 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 there's always even the stark contrast between George Bush and Barack Obama. There's still that very American like um tradition or I don't know. It's just that cohesiveness with our allies, right?
Patriotism, I guess you could say.
Yeah, right. With our allies,
Hmm.
there's a difference with Donald Trump. Donald Trump has
Unification.
done many things in the world stage that has been favorable for Putin rather than our allies when
Could
it comes to
could
things like
could you give
NATO
me
and
an example exactly? Because like he's also worked directly against Putin, especially in the cases of things like in Syria.
well. Yeah, I kind of think that was a dog and pony show. I mean, the Russians
You think
were
blowing up
given
a
time
Syrian Air
to.
Force base was a dog and
I
pony
know,
show?
but the Russians were given time to evacuate. I mean,
Well,
that
first
they
of all,
were.
that is
But
a
hold on,
common courtesy
which
with the respect to human
okay,
rights.
okay, fine and
Yeah,
fine. I
like
can
that's
say that, but what I'm saying is like I I I don't think that all the other things. Like I think that to an extent, Donald Trump has to show a couple things. You know what I mean? Like, or else it would be
if
even more
if
blatantly
they
obvious
weren't
than it already is that he hasn't imposed the sanctions that were unanimously. I mean, he's literally violating the Constitution by not enacting those sanctions. I mean, you do realize that, right? I mean, like that is like Congress said that goes okay, and that was bipartisan. There's nothing political about those sanctions. Okay, I mean that was.
Well, how
Russian.
exactly is he violating the Constitution, though? I'm trying to understand that.
He's supposed to enact those sanctions that Congress put forth. The executive branch. I mean, the is supposed to fucking put into law. I mean,
He's
the
supposed to
he's not the
sanction
only
Russia
one that
for what reason, though?
for for meddling in our
I
election,
agree that they I
essentially.
agree that they I agree that they should, and I can also agree that they. First of all, I can agree that they meddled in the election. I'm just not sure we're going to agree that whether they favored one party over the other, because the thing is they're going to take advantage of whoever's in power because it's absolutely necessary for them to do so. They don't get to go on pause as
That
far as
doesn't matter. It
corrupting.
doesn't matter though. A crime was committed in Russia, and why is I? It doesn't matter who Russia favored, okay, or whether they. I know maybe they were just sowing discord. I think it's pretty obvious that he favored Trump over Hillary just because Putin hates Hillary. I mean, they have history together. You know, when Hillary was Secretary of State. I mean, Putin's not like Hillary. Okay, Julian Assange is not
Yeah,
like Hillary. Okay, whatever. Fucking fine, but
I can
obviously,
definitely
okay.
I can definitely
If
agree that
if that was
there's a
Hillary,
lot of anti-Hillary sentiment coming from Russia, especially. I do agree with that as
oh
much.
God, yes, man. But my point
But
is obviously no matter who they face, if Hillary Clinton were president right now, those sanctions would have been enacted on their due date, probably before their due date when they were voted on.
yeah, but that's not reason for me to vote for Hillary Clinton.
I'm not saying that that's a reason for you to vote. I'm not making that argument. I'm
Okay,
saying
yeah.
that Donald Trump is in direct. I mean, for what
Well, yeah,
reason is he
he very well
not?
might be. I definitely don't see Trump. I
Okay,
definitely don't see Trump as a constitutionalist. I don't expect
right,
him
but
to
I'm
respect the
saying those
Constitution.
why for what reason? Why is Donald Trump never? Yes, he has taken a few actions against Russia, but that is in I mean I mean the speeches he makes. I mean when he was on the world stage
I
about
think he's a bit unaware of exactly how awful Russia really is, and I think for the most part he's a bit intimidated by Russia. So I think he tries to play nice with them because I don't think he wants to go to war with Russia, and I don't think he wants any sort of conflict with them. Because
I mean I could agree that I think he's intimidated by I
Trump to me does
think
not
we
seem like a
have
war
different
hawk.
reasons.
Like Trump to me does not seem like a war hawk. He doesn't seem like a dude that wants to, capitalize on opportunities of war. He doesn't seem to me like he really would benefit from allying with Russia a great deal because he's very business oriented. It's really pretty much all he cares about is the
I
economy.
understand that.
Um,
Right.
so like I don't know, I'm really trying to understand, like, just for the most part, when it comes to whether or not there is a direct effect as far as getting Trump elected over Hillary Clinton, I could definitely agree that there is a concerted effort against Hillary Clinton as far as the Russians go. I think for the most part they probably would have supported the Republican Party regardless of whether it was Trump or not, because obviously if Hillary Clinton's going to be the candidate, there could be no reasoning for as far as Putin goes. They need to support whatever direct opposition there is. And so if Ted Cruz was the Republican nominee and not Trump, they probably would have been pretty, at least acquaintances or allied in the sense with Ted Cruz, just by virtue of the fact that they're both
But but
anti-Hillary.
see but see I see I disagree though
I don't
because
think there's a
I
direct
mean when
relation, is all I'm
if
saying.
I followed the Russian quite a bit, okay,
All I'm saying is I don't think
and
there's a conspiracy in
they
place.
targeted other Republicans. They favored Donald Trump over other Republicans. So I may agree that they may have favored the Republican Party. If Donald for some reason it didn't work and Donald Trump didn't get the nomination, they would have definitely favored.
I don't think
It'd
they
have been,
wanted Trump to get the
they
nomination.
would have
I
definitely
don't.
been anti-Hillary, but
This.
they targeted other Republicans,
Mm.
okay, in the primaries. And this goes back to like,
Like
dude, I mean,
who? Like
I don't
who?
see
Whoa,
how you
whoa!
can understand
I've never heard this before.
Marco Rubio
Was targeted by
was
Russians?
one of them. Yeah, like targeted by the Russian Facebook ads. Like they've actually found like if you read about the Russian investigation, they've actually pinpointed some of the direct ads like pushed by these Russian troll farms and stuff like that. And even like some of these. Do you
Okay,
remember
see,
the? Do you remember the? Hold on. Do you remember
this is the
the?
problem though. One of the things like you get on me a little bit about is like talking about how things are directly affected, whether it's actually being things are being put into policy, and whether we're just talking about things that are just like sort of uncontrollable uncontrollable social movements and shit like that. If there's a lot of Russian troll farms going around influencing what people are seeing in their suggested ads and their news feeds and shit like that, I don't really necessarily see that as a conspiracy to elect somebody. I really just see like I don't. That's not like actually hacking election systems and changing votes and
No, I mean
ensuring somebody's a win.
well, certain it's a conspiracy to sow
Do
discord.
you
Like
think
for
Trump
another
actually
example, hold on.
conspired to do this though?
The another, I think that
Do you
Trump,
think Trump is smart
yes,
enough to have conspired to do this?
yes, I think that Trump. I don't think you have to be very smart. Well, I don't think that, I don't think you have to
Really?
be. I don't think you have to be smart to conspire with someone, okay, to collude with someone. But
Successfully.
well, successfully, um, I don't know how successful he is. I mean, the Mueller.
He's in
I mean, they're
office.
finding all kinds of crimes going on. I mean, he could
I
possibly
mean,
go to prison. That's not
what,
very
Trump?
successful in
Trump?
my opinion.
You think Trump's
Well,
gonna go to prison?
I don't know. Possibly, if I mean
No, see,
it looks as if he is
I,
now. I
I'll
don't
tell you the
know.
same
The
thing
only
I've
reason
told
that, hold
people.
on, the only reason I don't think Trump, the only reason I would think that Trump wouldn't go to prison is because this is precedent territory and like indicting a sitting president and in all this. You know what I mean? Like this is very like territory that now or like there's a difference between like did Trump commit crimes and deserves to go to prison versus is Trump actually going to go to prison?
Yeah,
Okay.
like that's the thing I would tell most people is
Okay.
that like you have a
Yeah.
snowball's chance in hell of putting a president in prison, or even a
Right.
presidential
But
candidate.
the only thing people are talking about is pardonable. Some of these crimes are not pardonable on the state level, and they have like basically some of these money laundering cases are at the New York state level, which are not pardonable by a president. So basically, his sons could go to jail, like Eric and Ivanka. You know what I mean? Like people in the Trump family could certainly go to jail. Donald Trump himself,
Oh,
I
here's the
don't
thing.
know. You
I'm
know what I
gonna need
mean?
to see solid proof before I believe that Trump or anybody in his family was legitimately conspiring with the Russians in order to
So I mean,
ensure their
Eric
victory.
Trump admitted to the meeting with basically fucking Russian spy in Trump Tower, in which they talked about sanctions, and now sanctions are not being enacted. I don't really know, like, what do you what kind of?
Is that
I
well? The thing
mean,
is that a conspiracy to elect, or is that some sort of a negotiation to dissuade them from putting in sanctions?
well, I mean, it doesn't have to be a conspiracy. I mean, they were getting Hillary Clinton's emails through WikiLeaks. I mean, through a foreign government. I mean, hacked
WikiLeaks is
emails.
not a Russian thing.
Yeah, see, I think WikiLeaks started
WikiLeaks has
off
been
with a
around
noble
much
cause.
longer than Trump's
I think
election.
I think that I think that WikiLeaks started off as a noble cause, and I think they inadvertently became a Russian front just because, well, Julian Assange hit,
What?
Hillary.
You think Julian Assange is serving a
Oh,
Russian front?
I think that
He
Julian
criticizes
Assange
Putin.
is
He's on.
definitely. I
I
know he.
guarantee
Believe me,
he's
I
on
know he does.
Putin's kill list. He
I,
has exposed Putin for
mm,
killing people. He's one of the main
dude.
reasons people know that Putin kills dissidents.
I mean, these are the channels that the Russian intelligence went through was Julian Assange.
Yeah,
I
but
just don't know
Julian
how much you. I
Assange
mean,
is.
where do you read about? Well, like what news sites are you
As far as
investigation?
WikiLeaks goes, I've gone to
No, just
WikiLeaks itself.
anything about the Russian investigation. Like what news sites are you actually getting information about the Russian investigation? Like, have you read some of the indictments, like the actual indictments? Like, actually
For the
read the
most part, the
indictments
Daily
themselves?
Wire. For the as far as that goes, like, for the most part, the Daily Wire, the Daily Wire is
Right, which is
um
pretty like
it's Ben Shapiro's website, and the thing is, Ben Shapiro is a first of all the most famous never Trumper that there was in the Republican Party during the election, and he to this day does not support Trump. He's not a Trumpian sort of Republican. He's actually much farther right than Trump. And he is not going to favor Trump in any way. He's fundamentally against him. He does not like Trump at all. There was one time where he lost a bet. People always share this picture around of Ben Shapiro wearing a MAGA hat. There was one time where he lost a bet when Trump elected Neil Gorsuch, or sorry, I should say nominated Neil Gorsuch for the Supreme Court, and he Ben Shapiro betted that they wouldn't get anybody like Neil Gorsuch, and they got Neil Gorsuch himself, and so he was forced to wear the hat. But so if you're gonna say, or if you think at all that the Daily Wire is going to be favoring Trump and trying to like cover things up or try to make it seem like it's not a big deal as far as the Russian investigation goes, they are probably more critical and more accurately critical of Trump than you will see on most
See,
left-wing
I
mainstream
disagree
media.
with you because a lot of there's many in the Republican Party that basically trying to make this go away for Trump too, because it makes the Republican Party look bad. And I can't see the Daily Wire actually being critical enough to go against the Republican Party. I
Ben
mean,
Shapiro has had entire radio shows
we'll
dedicated to
see, but
slamming
but
Trump over this
see, that's the thing
investigation.
though. I don't have to read Ben Shapiro's opinion because you can read the actual indictments, you can read the actual time. I
Well,
mean, there's,
okay, but
I mean,
you were asking where do I get as far as like this
yeah, I mean, I
investigation
was just curious
goes.
because you don't. I mean, when we first talked about it, you didn't even seem to know, like, or maybe to be fair, that was another Discord, but you didn't even seem to know that indictment. He was like, "Who's indicted?" Like, no one's been indicted. Like, there's been fucking
No, no,
at
I
least
understand
four
there have been
people
people
indicted.
indicted. There have been people. I don't understand. Yeah, like there's an investigation underway. People are going to get indicted, and
I mean, and that's the thing too.
I
It's
will
hard for
admit
me to
that
even breathe.
I am not
There's
the
been
most
there's
knowledgeable person when it comes to this specific case. I'm willing to admit
there is
that.
like so much stuff that comes up. Like, I can't even
For the
so
most part,
much. I mean, there's the
especially during the election, I really didn't even entertain conversations of Russian collusion and whatnot because I just saw it as conspiracy theories that were popping up, and I just
right,
didn't
but
really
it's
buy
actually
that.
been turning out to be true. That Steele dossier, there's no PP tape or anything like that,
I'm
but
totally willing to admit I'm not the
much
most
of the
knowledgeable
Steele
person when it comes to
dossier
this.
has been
So
like collaborated like through other sources. I mean, and then there was just another part of the Steele dossier that came out
you do
that
admit that there's a lot of ridiculousness that has come out of this investigation and this entire theory of Russian collusion, though, right? There is a lot there, especially the dossier that the Golden Shower Gate or whatever the fuck it was called. Like that shit. Like, am I really expected to entertain some shit like that?
honestly, if a PP tape came out about Trump, I really could give a shit less than that. I don't even
We're not
care.
just that, but like that was proposed as like some sort of damning evidence of Trump's collusion with Russia that he got pissed on by some hookers in a hotel room and in Russia.
But
It's
but
like
but that's the point. That was yeah. There has been ridiculous from some people. There has been ridiculous from some
so you can
pieces of the
see why
media.
it
But this
seems
is the
like
point, though. No, but I don't see the point because you can't This is what I'm saying. Just because there has been some ridiculousness on either side does not erase the damning shit like that has been
no, I'm not saying it
collaborated
does.
through the dossier. So most of that dossier has been
I'll tell you,
collaborated,
I think
which
where
makes
we
me
can
believe
agree.
that I don't think that there maybe is, but I wouldn't be surprised. If someone said there, oh shit, we did find the PP tape. I wouldn't be surprised. You know what I mean?
Here's what I'll say. I definitely know that there are a lot of neocons that are definitely very sympathetic, at least towards Putin and Russia. They typically like Putin because they see him as the same sort of leader that they want. And so I get that. There definitely might have been. I should say might have. Definitely was people within the Republican Party that were sort of affiliating themselves with Russia. It may have been playing into this sort of collusion in a sense. It's really just Trump himself and his family personally that I don't necessarily see the connection for. When we talk about the Republican Party as a whole, there definitely may have been some sort of complicit action between Russian officials um, and the Republican Party. But I definitely don't see it as far as Trump and his family goes, especially like you use the example of Trump's son meeting with the Russian. First of all, I think calling him a Russian spy is kind of simplifying. I'm pretty sure he does work for a spy organization, but I don't think he himself. I think he was an ambassador of sorts, and
Well, I mean,
they were talking
okay,
about
fine,
sanctions.
but I mean, you're right. They're talking about sanctions.
Again, I don't
And
really
at first
agree
he lied. At
that's
first he
evidence
lied
of
about it.
conspiracy.
I mean, at first he lied about it, and then he admitted it. Mike lied about no, there's like
Well,
no, there were
I'm
no meetings.
definitely. I mean,
And
like Trump's.
then, but this is not just Flynn. This is Flynn. This is Manafort. This is Sessions, who hasn't been indicted or anything. But this is Sessions. This is like
Yeah, Trump's
everyone
got a lot of
connected with
neocons
Trump.
around him.
Okay, No, not, but it's not just neocons. His son. I mean, it's always, well, there was, no, we didn't have a conversation. Well, okay, we had a conversation, but it wasn't about this. Okay, yes, we had a conversation, but it was about this. Like, these, dude, they do not act like innocent people act. I'm very sorry. Okay, innocent until proven guilty, but these are not. These people are not acting like
That's
innocent
basically all I'm
people act.
saying as far as Trump goes.
But
Like,
but I'm saying, dude,
here's the
you
thing.
should, before you discount Trump as being oblivious. I really,
I'm not
there's
saying.
nothing I'm going to be
Well,
able
I
to tell
mean,
you that you're going to change your mind. You just have to go and read. I mean, everything that's come out. I mean, Trump has talked to witnesses about what Mueller has been asking them,
if I
and
can
this
be
just came out the
shown,
other day.
if I can be shown irrefutable, damning evidence of Trump's involvement in whatever collusion did take place, I'll argue for his impeachment and removal from office tomorrow. You know, like that's the like, I'm if it, not necessarily like if he's proven guilty by through the
Well,
investigation and everything.
the other thing
If I
is,
can
listen.
find out
So
personally that it's
I'm not even
100%.
arguing for his impeachment right now yet, because the investigation isn't closed yet. But it sure does look like Trump and his family and everybody around the campaign is guilty of colluding with the basically conspiracy. Collusion's not even a legal term. I don't even like using it. It's basically conspiracy against the U.S. Okay, and
Yeah,
money
conspiracy
laundering
to
and
elect
tax
is what
evasion.
I think it's called. Like
No, it's
the
actually just
corruption of a
conspiracy
democratic
against the
process.
U.S. I mean, right, and I don't know what the technical terms
Well, I
are or
mean,
whatever,
like
but
to
and
corrupt the
even and
democratic
see, there's another
process.
thing too. I want to be clear. It doesn't matter if they succeeded or not. Okay,
Well, they
if
did. I
you
mean,
if
if this
if
happened, they
no,
did
it
succeed.
doesn't. Well, if it did happen, they did succeed. But this is another thing too. It doesn't matter if the, like, even if Eric Trump didn't get the emails, which I'm pretty sure he did. But even if he didn't get the emails, if you run into a bank and pull a gun and try to rob a bank and you don't succeed, you still go to jail. Okay, you still committed a crime. All right,
Hmm.
like, because this is another excuse by a lot on the right or the Republican Party in general, that, oh, well, nothing, no harm, no foul, because, what I mean, blah blah blah, they might have tried. But no, that is not an excuse. That is not how our law works, and that, nor should it work like that. If I attempt to fucking rob, that's why there's crimes like attempted fucking murder and attempted assault. You know what I mean? If you
Well,
attempt to commit a
here's what
crime.
I'll also say. Like when you ask me like what sources do I use to go look for a lot of this information, I'll look for sources from both sides. As far as the right wing sources go, I'll definitely go towards the Daily Wire because I know that they are not uh, Trump friendly, essentially.
Sure.
And on the left, I'll generally go to things like CBS, where I find CBS to be just less biased than other mainstream left wing sources like CNN. But the people will even disagree with me that CBS is necessarily left wing. I actually see CBS to be one of the more honest news networks,
See, I
regardless of
usually go. I
affiliation.
usually go where the, and then, so sometimes CNN will break a story, sometimes the Washington Post will break a story, sometimes
Hmm.
CBS will break a story. I usually go where the story's broke. I'll look at the story, I'll read it, and then usually other news agencies will report on that story, and then I'll look at what they have to say. And then sometimes, like in the case, there was a New York Times story, I think, that was like, it's actually funny because there's actually a New York Times story that like came out, and then a CNN, like, I forget what the story was, but CNN reporters actually got fired for it. And now it's come out that the actual story has been collaborated. So it's actually kind of fucked up because, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, and then, this is another thing too. Well, this is getting a whole nother thing. I don't even want to get into this because
I get what you're saying.
we were supposed to end this, but you know what
Yeah,
I'm
I know.
saying. But
I
like, yeah,
sidetracked us
but
again.
I'm telling you, I'm just highly like, but that's why so Trump's policy. When I say I don't understand how someone can support Trump, I'm not just talking about his policies. Yes, we can disagree on policy all fucking day, right?
Hmm.
I'm talking about, like, if you are a patriot to this country, I don't understand how you can support Donald Trump, because if you really dig into the Russia investigation, there has been no smoking gun yet. But if you really dig into it, I don't see how any like intelligent person that's really dug into the Russian investigation can say that there is nothing there. At the very least, his
Well, like I said, I didn't
he's
say there's nothing
ineptly,
there,
okay, but I'm saying at the
but
very least, he's ineptly, like, just a such a liar and such an incompetent person. If
I
if if,
mean,
if this is what's happened, you know what I mean?
if
Like,
there's an FBI investigation going on, chances are there's something there to be looked at.
Well,
I
right,
don't
and
I
and
don't know
listen,
more about it than the FBI does,
this
so I
whole thing
can't.
about like illegal wiretaps, like this is like Sean Hannity's whole narrative about illegal wiretaps and by the FBI, like FISA warrants aren't just like willy nilly given out because of like some dossier. Okay, you got to have a lot of shit to get a fucking okay.
I think
Like
as far as presidential candidates, they might be given a bit of a priority as far as something like that goes.
okay, maybe, but what I'm saying is like well, actually, the FISA for the dossier anyway that has been proven. That's been the
I think
narrative.
all
You know what I mean? Like
I think all like as far as presidential candidates go, I think they're all wiretapped, especially the more successful ones, the more popular ones that might actually have a chance of getting into office. I think they're all wiretapped by the FBI, and I think it might actually be kind of necessary. I think we
well,
should be vetting our
I mean,
candidates.
yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily just honest with
Yeah, I
care.
mean,
I've said it. I've said it
you're kind of
before.
forfeiting your right to privacy when you run for president.
Yeah,
A
I
little
kind of
bit.
agree. Hold on
You're the
one
most
second.
powerful man in the world. You good? You good?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, it
Door, but
sounds
yeah,
like you got some people coming in, so I'll go ahead and let you go.
yeah, no, just my roommate. But yeah, I do want to get some gaming done. It's a great conversation though
It
tonight.
was a good one.
We're getting better at this.
Yeah, like we were saying when we were originally trying to end it, for the most part, we just got to start talking about more of what we actually believe and care about ourselves rather than what other
Yeah, no,
people are
most
saying
definitely.
and doing. Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
And I
But,
think we can establish that. So we'll find out if we.
mm,
But this is my main. Yes, I policy points on Donald Trump. But when I really criticize people for and maybe I shouldn't because maybe I shouldn't imagine that they've read the same things I have or whatever. But I'm not necessarily talking about policy, even though I disagree till I'm blue in the face with Donald Trump policy on certain things. Okay, but it's just really about to me like I love this fucking country and I see them as being traitorous. You know what I mean? Like that's where my whole thing about Donald Trump comes from, essentially. You know what I
well,
mean?
I mean, I definitely I definitely disagree that Trump is a traitor to the country, but I think the conversation is really probably never going to end at that point because it's like we're
Well, it's
neither
never
of
gonna.
us
It's
are
not gonna
objectively
end.
going to know until the investigation's
I was
over.
gonna say it's not gonna end. Exactly. You know what? You're right.
Yeah,
I
so
think that
it's really
you know.
like a pointless disagreement to have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so
I
like,
just,
so go ahead.
well, I just basically take the position. I think there's too much smoke not to say that. You know what I mean? Like there's too much
There's
smoke
definitely
not to see a
smoke, and
fire.
yeah, there's got to be a
You know what
spark
I mean? But
somewhere.
like, right. But we'll see how. I guess we'll see. Right. We'll see. We'll see what the fire. How bad the fire is.
I'll tell you this, I definitely would never be someone so foolish to suggest that the Russians don't meddle in elections, especially America as being
No.
their most competitive
Oh my God.
superpower.
Right.
Anybody naive to believe, anybody naive to believe it, I'm sorry, naive enough to believe that that's impossible, that's like that is a very high level of stupidity there, I would say, at the
Well,
very
either
least.
stupidity or just a willingness to ignore reality to favor you.
Yeah, because
You
like
know.
if you had said that before 1991, you'd be looked at and laughed at. We're not that far removed from
Right.
1991.
No, we're not,
Yeah,
especially with Putin in power. I mean, that's it.
yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
that's what's up.
All right, so I'll
All
go ahead and
right.
let you go, man.
All right,
Go ahead and cut
brother,
the
that's
stream
what's up.
off.
Hey, Sea of Thieves is in beta this, so I don't know
Oh
if
yeah,
yeah,
I'd have to look it up. I'm not really sure a whole lot about it.
gotcha. All right. Well, all right, brother. I will speak at you later.
Cool. Peace, man.
Yep, later.